Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app. We are streaming live on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live every single day. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Happy Wednesday. We'll catch up with Jonathan Hutton in 1 hour. Jonathan Hutton, Hot Mic with Hutton Withrow. We'll get Hutton's thoughts on some stories that we've heard coming out of rookie minicamp. So that'll be in 1 hour. But happy NFL schedule release day.
Absolutely.
Oh, joy.
Oh, it's coming. It's coming. And I can't wait. Well,
Win, loss, win.
Everybody's going to do that. Everybody's going to win, loss.
Of course we're going to do that.
Of course we're going to do it.
Even though we already know who they play, we could have did the win-loss a long time ago because we know the teams that they play. But I guess, obviously, we don't know if they're home or away, so that may tilt
We
the
do know
scale
if they're
a little
home or
bit.
away. We just don't know when it is.
Yeah, when it is. When it is. We know who's at home and who's away, but we don't know when it is. So we should have did the win-loss sort of
So you're saying we're behind?
exercise. Yeah, we are behind. We should have did the win-loss exercise, it sort of put it in our scroll and just put it to the side.
The week scrolls.
Exactly. And then brought it back up when we needed to.
But I do think it matters when you play a team.
Yeah.
Like, that's I hear so many people saying schedule. Who cares about the schedule? And look, like there are more important things going on in the world than the NFL schedule. But like the Titans play the Bills on the road.
Yeah,
I feel much better about the Titans playing the Bills on September 8th than I do on December 22nd.
It is different.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's necessarily better. It's hard. You'd have to go back and look through the years. Do the Bills play better at home in December? Depends on if we're talking about a good Bills team or a bad Bills team.
It does depend on, is Will Levis going to be a cold weather quarterback? Because he's from Connecticut. He went to Penn State for a few years. Like
Exactly.
Ryan Tannehill from Florida and Texas and Tennessee. Small hands of Hill couldn't really hold his own in the cold in Buffalo and outside New York.
These are all the variables.
Yes.
And I think it definitely it definitely is significant in real time, but there's no way to predict, is the quarterback injured in Week 11, your opponent, right? That changes everything.
Of course.
But
That's
from a
always
weather
wild card.
standpoint, it's better to go into Buffalo now rather than, October, November, December, January.
But the way the Bills throw the ball now, could you argue that, that they haven't really had a good running game? Like, in December, do they throw it better in December than they do in September?
I don't know, but you're getting them. You would.
I'd be curious under the Josh Allen years.
But
had
you
they
would be
played better
getting
in colder weather?
You would be getting them early enough. I'm just looking at it from this season.
I'm just questioning whether
does he throw better in the
it's
cold
definitely
weather
different
or warm?
because when you play in December, you can expect nastiness. And
You
in
should
September,
expect.
not
You
so much
should-
nastiness.
it's not going to be a nice breezy 70-degree day in Buffalo
Right.
in December. And the other aspect, too, because the weather absolutely is a factor if it's at least an outdoor team, it's also when does the bye come? When does the bye come for you, and when does the bye come for the teams on your schedule? Like, if you're going to play the Houston Texans coming off of a Texans bye after you just played the Cincinnati Bengals, like that's a much different situation than you playing, a really good team after they, the Jags have back-to-back weeks in London. I would expect that the Jags have a bye after 2 weeks in London, but if the Titans get the Jags after 2 back-to-back weeks in London, well then great, I'll take my chances there rather than coming off of a bye.
I'll take it then too because they would have been, basically, it was a home game, but it was a away game because they had to travel. Didn't Jacksonville have 2 games last year in London?
They did.
Interesting.
There's a reason why they
That's very interesting.
have 2 international games this year again. I read that this morning. Okay, worth noting
have
that
trouble
amid stadium
selling
negotiations
tickets?
in Jacksonville, maybe.
In Jacksonville? I think maybe.
They have stadium negotiations in Jacksonville. The Jags are playing 2 games in London for the second consecutive year. Contracted home game at Wembley, and the owner of the Jags owns the stadium in London. That's what it is. And there's
So he's
stadium
basically
negotiations
playing
in
his
Jacksonville. Yes.
stadium for free. He's playing
Shad
his
Khan.
stadium for free. Yeah.
Exactly. It's basically just,
I want to take it to my summer house.
cross promote.
Hey, let's go play at my summer house. across the pond.
We'll have some tea after the game.
Exactly. Let's go play at my summer house.
We're going to spend
across
October
the
in
pond.
London, and then we'll come back to Jacksonville in November. We're going to be snowbirds throughout the football season.
Oh, man.
So we do know 2 games so far. We do know that week 2 is at home against the Jets. So Aaron Rodgers coming into town. And then week 8 at Detroit.
We assume Aaron Rodgers is coming into town.
Yeah, I mean, if we made that assumption last year,
Exactly,
maybe it
and
was
he
too
was-
big of an assumption.
Exactly. But yeah, it did. Those 2 games. Specifically, I'm sure they will be well anticipated games, especially Aaron Rodgers coming here to Nashville. But I would like, moving forward, where are the other games played? Not necessarily played, but when?
When?
Yeah, not necessarily where, but when. That's going to be interesting. So, but I mean, this team. This is a good. I believe this team has improved. We'll be able to better see it, obviously, once they start practicing and start getting into 2-a-days in preseason. But I think it's much improved, and I think it's going to be a surprise season for the Titans. I really do. I think they've upgraded
Good
in
surprise
areas.
or bad
I
surprise?
think good surprise. I think they've upgraded in areas they needed to upgrade. Now they still need depth and they still need other players, but I think at the positions that we were concerned about last year, that was an Achilles heel for them last year, the positions, they seem to, at this point, upgraded at those positions. Left tackle, center, 2 corners. You get the
Receiver.
depth, at running back, some more depth at running back, receiver. So it seems like those areas that were a concern last season, it seemed like they addressed them right now. They've addressed them with some good players. So I think this is going to, barring injury, I think this is going to be a surprise season in a good way for the Titans.
I don't know if I can get that optimistic yet.
Yeah.
But I do think there is a path to this
Yeah.
Titans team not being horrendous. Like I was talking to Robbie and Rexroad, I think this was last week, and I was on with them on Tuesday morning. I said, look, I think 9-8 could be a possibility.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the ceiling for this team, but 9-8, you might get in the playoffs. 9-8, you might just barely miss the playoffs. But if you told me today and you gave me zero context as to what happened in the season and just said, hey, today I'm going to tell you that the Titans go 9-8 this season, are you okay with that? I'd probably take that.
I would take it, sure.
It all depends on
the
how
Titans,
it looks.
That's the question
Totally.
to
And
me.
that's the how does the quarterback look? is the
Exactly.
most
Because
important.
where are they
Absolutely.
going? It's 9-8 is not going to get you where you want to go ultimately. So are you in the direction of getting to something better? The Titans had 4 consecutive 9-7s, a couple of which they made the playoffs and a couple they didn't. But they did break through
Yeah.
on the other side and have a couple division titles and et cetera. So that's my question. I'm not as worried about the record. I've been on record, and I will continue to be saying this is more I'm looking to see what I've got kind of year. If you win, I'm not going to sneeze at that. That's great. If they don't, I want to see what are we building towards. Where is Levis going? How is the line coming along? What does my team look like 2 years down the road? Or, not just this year, but next year, right? Because you can't rebuild for 4 years. Nobody wants to do that, especially in the NFL. But you've got
You're
to
gonna
be
be out of a
building a
job.
nucleus. You've got to be building a nucleus of something that can be better, right? If it's a veteran team that overachieves to go 9-8, well, that's okay. But what does that mean for the next year, right? As Hopkins is a year older, as Ridley's a year older, how
And then you have Boyd on a
can you
one-year deal.
sustain?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Boyd's on a
Boyd's
one-year
another
deal.
good example of a guy that's you're hoping to get a good year out of him this year. But what happens the following year? What do you? Because I think the roster in the middle, the developmental pieces of your draft picks and stuff, that's the huge question, right? And it may not translate to a lot of wins. So I'm not that worried if they're 9-8, 8-9, 7-10, 9-8. Maybe it's 50-50 you make the playoffs.
I think
Like how
that's
many
fair.
9-8 teams make the playoffs? How many don't? In the 17
not
game
many.
schedule, I'm not as familiar with that. It's maybe 50% at the most.
It
I would say.
it depends too. Is the AFC going to be super dominant, or
Right,
is the
right.
AFC going to cannibalize
All of those things
itself?
that you don't know.
9-8, I think today I could say is very much so a toss-up. You make the playoffs or you don't. The reason why the record would matter to me is because I know that we can debate this all day long, but I do view to a certain extent wins are a quarterback stat. And if you are, let's say, 4-13, well, that would lead me to believe that Will Levis didn't play very well. And if you're 9-8, well, that would give me encouragement that Will Levis is playing better, that he's doing the things that he needs to do in order to win. Now, what does that 9-8 look like? Because I think that 9-8, 8-9 kind of gray area, mushy middle could mean, completely different things. That maybe the defense just completely bails you out of games when Will Levis looks horrendous, and maybe that 9-8 is a little bit misleading. Or maybe it's the opposite, where Will Levis is absolutely balling and the defense is horrendous because you can't get to the quarterback and Devondre Sweat can't stay a certain weight, and the defense really lets you down. There's
and the
different
schedule,
stories to
let's
that.
tie it to the schedule. The schedule can be a factor in whether you're 9-8 or 7-10. Because of some things that just might fall in your lap. Like I would use the Colts last year. They got their quarterback hurt early. They did a very good job to be competitive. But I would say some things fell into line for them, to help them. First of all, Gardner Minshew, to his credit, played pretty well. I thought they sort of maxed out what they had.
Yeah.
But I think if you take a look at who they beat, they mostly beat the bad teams. They had some things fall into line for them.
And in 2022, think about the Jags made the playoffs because the Titans had an epic collapse.
Oh, yes.
And lost 7 games in a row. So sometimes there are things out of your control that really help you out in the long run. But, in the opposite way, if the Titans go 4-13, Will Levis probably didn't play very well. You probably have a top 5, top 8 pick, and you might be thinking about taking a quarterback. You go 13-4, I don't think that's going to happen. But then that means, to me, Will Levis is playing very well, and you do have a little bit more of a definitive answer of what you want to do moving forward. It's that 8-9, 9-8 mushy middle, but even that 8-9, 9-8 might be a little bit of a reach for where this team is at right now. Because let's be honest, you don't have safety.
No,
you need to pick up a safety.
Yeah.
You probably need maybe a little bit more depth at inside linebacker. You don't know who's playing right tackle. You still don't know. Will Levis still very much so is a question mark. And a lot of these things are wait and see kind of things, especially Will Levis. And as we go throughout this next round of free agency, the Titans are going to pick up a safety. It's just a matter of who and it's a matter of when. So where we believe this team can go and how we believe this team can be this upcoming season, a lot of it really is wait and see. And that's an uncomfortable place to be in as a fan.
Yeah.
You want to know.
Yeah, you want to know. And unfortunately, because of what has happened to this franchise over the last, 4 or 5 years, meaning depth-wise, and not, some guys not panning out. I don't care who, regardless of who drafted them, they just didn't pan out. Now they're in a situation where, you just don't know going into the season whether, you're going to have a record that is going to put you in the playoffs or not. Ironically, 9-8 is not going to get you in the playoffs. 8-9 is definitely not going to get you in the playoffs. Last year, 9-8 didn't get anyone in the playoffs last year. The year before that, I think it got 2 teams in the playoff before that in 2022. In 2021, I don't think there was any team. Well, there was one team. Well, they were 9-7-1 that made the playoffs.
So
with a 9-7,
so in the
9-8.
17
that's the AFC.
schedule.
That's in the AFC. I'm just talking
Yeah.
the AFC. I'm not talking the NFC. And this is when they changed it. Well, last year they made it 18. Was it 18 games last
17.
year? 17 last year. So
It's been what?
it's
Is this
been
the third year
17.
coming up?
I think
I
21
think this
was
is
the first
third
year.
of the.
2020 was the final year of 16
So
games.
21 was so since 21. Teams with 9-8 records don't.
It's not as easy.
Yeah, it's not as easy.
So
to
it's
get in
less
with a
than
9-8.
50%.
Yeah,
9-8.
it's less than 50%. You
Easily.
got to win at least 10 games to have the security of getting in the playoffs. 9-8, you still on the outside looking in. You just hope your division, your division is not good. Like 2 years ago, the Titans division wasn't good, and Jacksonville ended up winning it at 9-7, I think. But 9-7, 8-9, it's not going to get you there.
Right.
10 wins is push. It's like it's going to barely get you there. You got to win at least 10 games to have that security of okay. There's more likely than not we're going to make the playoffs.
And would you put money on the Titans winning 10 games right now?
I would not.
I would
but
not.
that's okay. That shouldn't surprise anybody. This is a rebuilding
I
team.
got them in between 8 7 to 10 wins. I got them in between.
And
the 7
and 10
wins.
and 10-7.
Yeah, that's the big gap.
Very
exactly.
good.
But what we say,
Absolutely.
that's the
But
NFL.
how does it look?
That's the
But
NFL. You're going to have probably 6 or 7 games that come down to a field goal, one possession.
Oh, yeah.
Most teams do. And the Titans rode a great stretch that we documented a lot, where Vrabel's teams seem to have a great knack of winning the close games, and that dried up the last couple years. So that's another thing. Oh, one kick, right? Making the kick at the end of the game and missing it, or the other team making it or missing it, can be the difference between 8 and 9, 9 and 8, or 7 and 10, 9 and 8. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's such a razor's edge league. But you're asking, I think, the key question: how does Levis look at the end of the season?
That's the
How
thing.
does
That's
your
the question.
team? How does your roster look at the end of the season? How are the young players coming along? How many holes? How many less holes do you have to fill next offseason as opposed to this offseason where you had to go shopping at every mall,
Yeah.
every store, and try to find help because you desperately needed help because you didn't draft very well in the prior regime, or at least you didn't in the last couple years of the prior regime. That's what you're trying to build towards. You're trying to build towards a team that can win. Now, in the meantime, building a winning culture, that's important, right? That's so like a 4-13, you might I'm not saying the record doesn't matter, right? Cuz 4-13, does the team know how to win?
Is your
quarterback playing well? Were you decimated with injuries? Why is it 4-13? Because in a perfect world, you may not be a great team, but if you've got a foundation that you're building, that's important for a new head coach.
And injuries are always going to be a caveat for every team, every player in any league. And it's just something that's completely out of your control. But that is one of my big fears for the Titans this season, is either this team gets so and obviously that's going to be a concern every year, is that this team gets so decimated with injury, knock on wood, or that the
'Cause that's what's happened
quarterback
the last
gets
couple
injured,
years.
knock on wood, and then we don't get any closer to an answer to the number one question that I think is surrounding this franchise, and that is Will Levis your quarterback of the future? Because how can you answer that question if Will Levis doesn't have anyone to throw to, or if Will Levis is on the bench, again, knocking on all of the wood in this room, if Will Levis is on the bench because he tore his ACL in week 3.
Yeah,
Knocking on
well,
wood.
you've from as we sit right now, they've added weapons to help this young quarterback succeed. There's the way I look at it, there's no excuse for him other than second year sort of, progression or, getting that maturity in your second year. And I understand that still can be a task for him because he didn't play the whole season. He got hurt. He played some. He got hurt. So he didn't really get into a rhythm, I'm sure the way he wanted to. So this second year is going to be critical for him. But I think they've set it up for him that he should, the numbers, even though numbers don't tell everything, the numbers should look good because of the people he's throwing it to. If he doesn't have a good season, then yeah, we need to question because you've set him up with 3 guys and hopefully a 4th with Traylon. You set him up with 3 guys that have played a lot of football, that have won a lot of games, that have been on winning teams, that have made clutch plays in this league. So they understand it. Especially, they understand playing with the young quarterback, too. D-Hop played with a young quarterback. 2 of them. Boyd played with a young quarterback. Calvin Ridley played with a young quarterback. So all these guys understand what it takes to play with a young quarterback and how much you got to make sure you're on your game with the young quarterback. Because what you don't want to do is lose the trust. I've always talked about this, not being where you're supposed to be. The late Mike Hammerding would tell me all the time, just be where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there. That's it. That's all the quarterback cares about. Well, that's the thing that they have to make sure that they get with Will Levis. That trust that I'm going to be right where I need to be, Will. Just throw the football. So to me, this is going to be a big season for Will because they set the table for him already to go out and at least have a good season because of the players they put in place. D-Hop, Boyd, Ridley. You got Pollard in the backfield. You went and got, Cushionberry at center, so that should help you immensely. You went and drafted your left tackle. You got Skoronski for another year, a second year. You got to build up the right side. I understand that. But they are putting everything in place so you don't have an excuse. That's just the way I look at it. Now, are these guys in the prime of their career? No, they're not. But they're still all good players that can help a young quarterback. So if he doesn't mature, I look at this the same way I looked at my first year with Joe Flacco. They brought in all these veteran guys. Why? To help out the young quarterback. So you brought in guys that were from winning organizations, guys that have made plays in this league. Put them on a team. You allow the young quarterback to grow. Joe matured and he got better because he had those veteran guys to lean on. He had trust in us that we were going to catch the ball, be where we're supposed to be, and more importantly, be available for him when he needed us. Like, be available each and every game. That's what they're trying to do here in Nashville, is to set him up with some veteran guys that haven't missed many games, which they all haven't other than Ridley, and I understand why. And then D-Hop, he got suspended too. But other than that, when it's talking about injuries, they hadn't missed much because of injuries. Tyler Boyd has, knock on wood. But you're trying to set him up with a veteran group so he has no excuses. He doesn't have to carry the team. You just need to deliver the ball. You just need to orchestrate all this. That's all you need to do.
Because I think we would all like to know at the end of this season, is Will Levis your quarterback of the future or not?
And that's why they set all of this up the way that they did.
After next season, you have to know.
Yeah, you have to.
You have to know. You don't get the privilege of a fifth-year option with Will Levis. You don't get as much time to figure out, is this really our guy, if you would have drafted him in the first round. You have to know at the end of year 3. And I think that we'd all like a little bit more clarity at the end of year 2. Because, again, if they're picking top 5, top 7, top 8, might be a quarterback in there that you could take. And is that the direction that this franchise decides to go in? It's a big year for Will Levis. I don't think it's an accident.
Correct me if I'm wrong. And this changes,
FDR.
right? But haven't we heard a lot that this is not a great quarterback crop coming up through the ranks?
This upcoming season, yeah.
That's what I heard a lot of, but
that's what they're saying.
And that changes
That can
every
change.
year
Exactly.
because last year, I know this time last year, we were talking about the Caleb Williams and Drake May draft. Nobody was talking about Jaden Daniels as an elite quarterback prospect. Fast forward to now.
Talking about Knicks and McCarthy being first round picks.
Not in the slightest.
Like next year is going to be like 1983 where there's 6 quarterbacks. I didn't hear a whole lot of that.
No.
Right?
Now I think it's
you don't know.
the Ewers and Carson Beck draft. But again, things change. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to get in on the conversation. A little schedule leak news. Week 11, November 17th, Titans hosting the Vikings.
I predict a tie in that game.
Ooh, a juicy
I'm putting it
prediction
down.
from you,
A
Willy.
tie.
Wow. J.J. McCarthy
There's going to be a
to
T
town.
on my little scroll here. WLLWWW T. Week 11.
Week
versus
11,
Vikings.
tie with the Vikings. Okay, so we've got week 2 hosting the Jets, week 8 at Detroit, and week 11 hosting the Vikings. We'll keep
What
you
up, Doe?
We'll keep you updated with any more Titan schedule leaks as those start to come out. Non-Titan schedule leak, but Ravens-Texans on Christmas Day. That's a good one.
That's going to be a good one,
That's a
yes.
juicy little game. Okay, coming up next, we bring up how the Titans have gotten a little bit more depth at certain positions. One NFL insider thinks the Titans might not need as much depth as they have at one certain position. We'll get into that coming up next, and of course, your thoughts as well. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, we're brought to you by Zen Sports. Start earning cash rewards on your bets today. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and in Tennessee to bet.
All right, let's talk Loan Pronto. Imagine waking up next week and being free from out from under. In fact, I just was watching, I think it was CBS that we had on this morning, and they had a woman coming on talking about, credit card bills and what do you do if you've got some serious credit card issues. Well, this is a tool that I've been talking about a lot through our friends at Loan Pronto. One tool to put you in a better spot and away from a lot of those credit card bills that can grow on you, right? This is the age we live in right now. The cost of living is up. You might have a credit card that's got a real high interest rate, and it's bogging you down. Well, if you're a homeowner, you've got a way to go, and that's through Loan Pronto's Express Equity line of credit. They can get you out from under that, and they can get it quick because they take that money from your home's equity. Your home's value is probably way up right now. You can use that cash and use that money to pay off the credit card bill. Make it zero. That's the way to go. And you're going to save through this process, on average, about $850 a month. So check it out and find out if this is right for you. All you've got to do is call Loan Pronto, 615-499-5780. The process is quick. You can get approval in about 10 minutes, and a lot of times you don't need an appraisal, no documentation, and you can get those dollars and put them to use for you. 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval, equal housing lender.
Value is just to see him healthy. I know he's had a lot of knickknacks and different injuries. How different is to see him healthy?
It's always valuable when the guys are healthy. You know, they get a chance to really lean into the work. They can really improve. It's hard sometimes when you're injured to learn and then not be able to do. And so being healthy allows you to take all the things that we talk about and be able to go on the grass and execute it. So that part's a huge advantage. So guys, when you get an off season where you're healthy, you can really make strides and really improve. And I think we'll see that.
That was Titans head coach Brian Callahan on Traylon Burks. All right.
I like that.
Okay.
You want to know a quick story to that? My niece, I guess they had a trip to the Music City Country Music Hall of Fame. So I guess when you go there, there's a area where you can write your own lyrics, and then they put them into a song. So her friend, and two of her friends wrote the lyrics to this song.
This song?
Yeah, this song right
No
here.
way.
Yes, and they're like 8, 9 years old, these kids. So they wrote this song at the Music City Country Music Hall of Fame. Yes.
Did you send this to Nick?
Yeah, I sent it to Nick this morning.
No way. She's a songwriter in the making.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm going to keep this one.
You should. You can keep her around. Well, it's great. If you're listening, it's a great song.
Yes.
It's a great song. But that was Brian Callahan on Treylon Burks' offseason, but staying healthy, how beneficial that can be. And it is interesting. Whenever the Titans brought in Tyler Boyd, that sparked conversation among Titan fans, nationally, among us, of what does that mean for Treylon Burks? Bill Barnwell kind of broke down, maybe that means Treylon Burks' best spot this upcoming season isn't with the Tennessee Titans. Because Bill Barnwell, of course, ESPN.com, NFL Insider, wrote an article, and the headline is Post to NFL Draft Trades Signings That Should Happen, 10 deals. One deal that he writes about is the Steelers should trade for Titans wide receiver Treylon Burks. Bill Barnwell writes, another player buried on a depth chart, Burks has been a victim of unrealistic expectations and bad timing. The Titans essentially drafted him as the replacement for A.J. Brown. Isn't essentially what happened? That is what happened. They traded A.J. Brown and drafted him to be his replacement. But it says it hasn't panned out because of injuries to Burks and upheaval at quarterback. 5 different players have thrown him passes over his first 2 seasons. There's always a sense of hesitance from front offices to give up on a first-round pick so quickly, but the regime that drafted Burks is no longer in the building, as John Robinson was fired in 2022 before head coach Mike Vrabel was dismissed after last season. New GM Rand Carthon hasn't exactly hidden his feelings about Burks. He's signed 3 veteran wideouts in free agency over the past 12 months, bringing in DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, and Tyler Boyd. Nick Westbrook-Akine might be ahead of Burks at this point. So what do we think? A potential trade with the Steelers sending Treylon Burks to Pittsburgh.
I mean, listen, anything can happen in this sport. There can be trades, and we've seen trades. So I'm not going to say that he's totally off base with this, because obviously we're in this situation because Treylon hasn't, one, been available enough, and the production is it's too inconsistent at best. And I'm just being honest about it. As good as I think he can be, what I've seen of him, but the truth is, it's just been inconsistent. You hadn't been on the field long enough. And then when you have been on the field, there has been some inconsistencies with you catching the ball at times. But that doesn't mean I don't think, he still can have a role on this offense, a bigger role than what he's had the previous 2 seasons. So I don't see the need to trade Treylon, because if you trade him now, you're not going to get much for him. And it's just because, the production is not there. Yes, he has a lot of potential, but the production, if I'm trading 3rd and 4th round picks, I want to see the production. Don't tell me about, his ceiling, or, he has all of these, the talent is there. Don't tell me that. He hadn't shown it consistently. So I'm not giving you a 3rd, a 4th. A 5th, maybe 6th, yeah.
Well, that's Barnwell's proposal.
Exactly.
Barnwell's proposal is really eye-opening to me, because I think Barnwell is pretty good. Yeah. I tend to side with D-Mase. I'd rather keep and hope that there's still time for him to turn into a good player. You're starting to worry, right? You're starting to have some doubts, but I'm not giving up. And you're also hedging your bets because you brought in Boyd, you brought in Ridley, and so you're not just, leaving a wide open space. Here, Treylon, go out. This is the space. Make some mistakes. You're in there. They've gone a different approach now. Now it's like you got to find your way. You got to putt your way in there. Yeah. Like you said the other day, ignore all the other things going around you and just focus on being a good player, and eventually it will take care of itself. They'll get you on the field. They'll get you in there. So Barnwell says if now he points out, this is again going back to our discussion earlier about Askarov and how a first-round pick and the investment in a first-round pick in the NHL
It's different.
is different than the NFL, where they paid Burks up top as a first-round pick. There's a bigger investment in money in a first-round pick. So it's like you want return on your investment. You really hope that he goes well. Barnwell is saying because the Titans still owe him $8 million guaranteed over the next 2 seasons, that in order for this deal to happen, the Titans have to eat $6 million of what's left on Burks' deal just to get a 6th-rounder back.
And not even a 6th-rounder, a 2026
Yeah.
6th-rounder.
So we're talking
Come
about
on,
2
man.
years from now.
2 years in the future,
So-
and you eat the money?
So what?
Hell
how,
no.
how do I come out on top on that if I'm the Titans? I think I'd much rather just say, look, I hope the kid still has a chance. Like, I'm sure Barnwell, I think he makes this point, Rand Carthon did not draft Burks, right? So it's easier for that GM to say, that's not my pick. I'm not as invested. I don't have as much of a vestige because I can just say, look, I'm trying to clean up this mess, man. He's not my pick. But I hope they've seen enough flashes of brilliance, just little sparks here and there, little signs that he can still be a good player. But the money does come into play, right?
Yes.
It's more so than just anybody.
But it's not enough. $8 million over the next 2 years. So let's just say to make it even, $4 million this year, $4 million next year. That's not a big enough number to scare me away to say, okay, we'll take whatever back in compensation that we can get just because we want him off of our books.
But I would play the other side of the coin, though. This is where you have to get into the salary cap stuff. A 4th wide receiver, which on the depth chart right now, he would be the 4th wide receiver who doesn't play special teams. Barnwell makes this point, right? You don't pay that much money to that guy. That's a league minimum $2 million guy, right? Ideally. Now this
But
is
your
where
third wide
this is
receiver-
a rebuilding year. So I'm willing to keep investing in Burks and keep him. But I see his point, right? Because he makes a lot more than that's not good managing of assets if you're paying $8 million over the next 2 years for a 4th wide receiver, which is where he is right now. That's the dilemma.
Yeah, it is the dilemma. But I don't look at it because, I've been in these situations. So I don't look at it as, he's the 4th or 5th wide receiver. Because technically, yes, but no. And I say that for this reason. Because teams play so much 3 wide receiver sets. Callahan has already told us, Traylon, we are asking him to learn every position. X, H, Z, or X, Y, Z, whatever you want to, however they, label that slot guy. Some people do it to Y, some people do it in H, or name it something, give it another letter. Exactly. So what Brian is telling you is, listen, yeah, y'all are looking at it totally wrong. He's the 4th, but he's really not the 4th, because we're going to make sure that this kid knows every position. That, if D-Hop, because the Titans rotate their receivers, and which I hate, but they do it, and I get it. They rotate their guys in and out, in and out, in and out. So Traylon is going to play. If he shows anything in the preseason, he's going to play a lot. This is not about him being the 4th wide receiver or the 5th or the 3rd. He's going to play a lot. Why is he going to play a lot? Because he's going to spell Ridley when he needs 2 or 3 plays or he goes down. He's the first one up. D-Hop goes down. He's the first one up. Not Nick Westbrook-Ikine. Not Tyler Boyd to shift him outside. Tyler Boyd will play the slot. That's it. He won't play outside. And this is why I look at it totally different from being, he's the 4th wide receiver, so he needs to play special teams. Not necessarily. He doesn't. And they're asking him to learn all these positions because of that. Because he doesn't play special teams, we need to get him on the field to see. So, D-Hop, you need a break. Traylon, get in there. All right, Calvin, you're coming out. D-Hop, you come back in. Traylon, you go over to the Z now. They're going to try to keep him in the game. He's going to spell these other guys, which – yes, he is the 4th, but he's really not the 4th. Because he's the guy that you
But the
you
real
put in all
thing is,
those.
you want him to eventually.
So he's going to get. That's what I'm saying. That
I
$4
hope
million
so.
don't mean
I hope
anything
so.
to me.
And hopefully, with those reps, he shows that he's going to blow by one of those guys,
Exactly.
at least Boyd, in time, right? Because that's the real answer: is where is he going to be in 2 years? Can he take a step forward? That's the only reason you would keep him, because you have at $8 million over the next 2 years. You're still hoping that he gets to a level, because you can use Nick Westbrook-Akine to be that role that you're talking about. Spell this guy, spell that guy. Go in
But
there.
he doesn't
you can
have
find
the
other guys for a lot
explosiveness.
less.
He doesn't have the explosiveness
right.
of Traylon Burks.
This guy has. You've been saying all along, he's got tools. You hope that it's just taking him longer to have everything come together, connecting all the dots, understanding everything, and staying out there and not getting hurt. That's maybe the
The
biggest.
$4 million that you're paying for is not for a fourth receiver. You're paying the $4 million because you see potential.
Exactly. You're not
You're
paying
paying
because
the
he's
$4 million
fourth.
for
Exactly.
the
You
hope
want him
that
to
he
pass
turns
up
into
Boyd.
something.
You want him to pass up an aging Boyd. Maybe not
No.
week one.
You want him.
You want him to be
to
better.
pass up
D-Hop.
D-Hop
Sure.
and Boyd for this
I
reason.
love the sound of
because
that.
these
I love
two
it.
guys are on 1-year deals now.
Yes.
So you got to try to set this up. That's why he's going to be in the rotation a lot, because they need to find out if he can play. Because, again, next year, this receiving core will look a little different. Part of me believe if D-Hop has another good season, they're going to try to re-sign him to a 2-year deal. That's a part of me believes that, because that's the same thing that happened to me in Baltimore. So I'm sort of putting the two together. But
I could see a path where that happens.
Yeah, that's
Totally.
what I'm saying. So, but if that doesn't happen, you got two guys that are going to be exiting your rotation. So you need to find out if Traylon can be that guy. That's why we're having him play all positions, because we don't. Two of these positions might be available next year. One, I think, will be available, but both may be available. And I need to see if he can handle the workload of knowing all three. If he can handle the workload of knowing all three, when we segue out of the two, D-Hop and Tyler Boyd, because of expiring contracts, not because they can't play, because of expiring contracts, then you're able to slip Traylon in there. That's why he's playing all these positions, because they know next year, like, they don't need Traylon to be, 800-900 yards. They don't.
That'd be great.
If they can get, in his role, if they can get high 500-600, maybe 5 touchdowns, that's good, because now
Maybe some good yards per
now
catch
we
numbers.
see that,
Efficiency.
okay, now if we slide you into the 2, you can go at the 2.
Can you stay healthy?
And can you stay healthy?
That's another
That's
thing they've got to
question
find out.
1A is, can you stay healthy? And my thing right now is this deal proposed by Bill Barnwell. If the Titans eat $6 million of what's left in Burks' $8 million deal, you get a 2026 6th-round pick in return.
That sounds great
That's
for the Steelers.
absurd.
Yeah, sounds great for the Steelers.
That sounds like
They
I'm a
would've
Steeler
fleeced
guy
somebody else.
looking at it from the Steelers.
That's
They would have
absurd.
fleeced somebody else. They
I'll
just
take him for
fleeced
nothing.
the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, I'll take him
They
for
just
nothing.
got them.
Literally pay him nothing and give up
Yeah.
nothing in
Exactly.
exchange for
Yeah,
him.
come on.
While I don't have high expectations for Burks, just because I can't let myself have high expectations for Burks based on him not being able to stay on the field over the last 2 years, I still have a glimmer of hope.
Yeah.
A glimmer of hope, and I see the potential in what he can become. So you're going to have to sweeten the pot a whole lot more than a 2026 6th-round pick and me having to eat the cash. I'm not eating the cash. If Traylon Burks was a problem and you just want to get him out of your locker room, I get it. But everything that I've heard,
He's
Traylon
not.
Burks is
That's-
absolutely not
exactly.
a problem in the locker room. I'll hold on to him if all it's going to cost me is $4 million this year. I want to get into your thoughts on this. We've got a bunch of phones, so we are right to you coming up next, talking Traylon Burks, talking NFL schedule leaks. Again, so far we know that the Titans will play at home against the Jets in Week 2, on the road at Detroit in Week 8, and then Week 11 hosting the Minnesota Vikings. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Right to you coming up next. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 1025-1063 The Game.
Let's talk about Zen Sports, people, the new sports book in Tennessee that brings sports betting to a whole new level, and I mean that literally, people. When you sign up for Zen Sports, you'll automatically earn up to $1,000, no danger first wager. If your first bet loses, you'll be reimbursed for the amount of your bet up to $1,000. Zen Sports also offers true odds on all parlays and boosted same-game parlays for all Tennessee sports teams. That means boosted up to 20% over other books in Tennessee. And there's even more good news, people, because we love it. We love good news, especially on a Wednesday. Zen Sports offers a one-of-a-kind VIP reward program. If you qualify, you'll earn monthly comps at sporting events, concerts, you name it, even sport book bonuses. The VIP program is by invite only. So if you feel that your Zen Sports play qualifies for the VIP consideration, check out the program details and apply at zensports.com/VIP right now, people. So what are you waiting for? The daily same game parlay boost go quick. So get going and download the app at zensports.com today. I'm telling you, they go quick. They're quicker than me, and I'm very quick. So, Zen Sports, where betting just got better. And remember, gambling problems, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 years or older to bet here in Tennessee.
Caroline, Willy, D-Mase. We'll catch up with Jonathan Hutton, Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow in 10 minutes. But now we are talking Traylon Burks. Bill Barnwell on ESPN.com had 10 proposed trades that he thinks should happen in the offseason. One of those being the Titans should trade Traylon Burks to the Steelers. And when it comes to any proposed trade, my question is always going to be, what are you going to get in return? Bill Barnwell says, well, if the Titans eat $6 million of the $8 million remaining on his deal, they could get a 2026 6th-round pick. Yeah, no thanks.
6 of the 8? Good Lord.
If you're offering
might
me
as well keep them.
Yeah, exactly. If you're offering me a 2025 third, now we're talking.
Yeah,
Now
okay.
we can talk.
It does
But
sort of
that's no
illustrate,
thanks.
I wonder if anybody else would think you could actually get more. Because I do think sometimes it's easy from where we sit here to say, well, Burks was a first-round pick. Maybe we'll trade him. What could we get? And the answer might come back as something a lot higher than a 6th-rounder where you pay 3/4 of the remaining money.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of a shock to the system to some, right?
Yeah.
But it does illustrate he doesn't really have any trade value.
That's a very fair point.
That would mean a desperate team. If you're getting more than a 5th or 6th, I would even say more than a
I could see a 5th. Maybe.
Maybe
anything
a 5th.
more than a 5th is a shock.
It's a stretch.
That's like
Yeah.
you're looking at it. Whoever gives up more than a 5th, and again, when I say this, it's not because I'm saying it because I don't think Traylon can play. I think he can, but he hasn't shown anything right now. So if you get more than a 5th-round pick for him, then I'm sure the Titans would look seriously into doing that. But if you're getting less than that, then there's no need to, especially if I got to take on a contract too. No, I might as well just keep him and try to make it work out.
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's get into your thoughts on this. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Adam in Portland is on the line with a thought on Traylon Burks. What's up, Adam?
Hey, Caroline. So here's my problem with it, right? Like I feel like we finally got one position checked off, and I'm seeing these forums everywhere. It's not just Burks. It's like, should we trade D-Hop? You're going to have to trade D-Hop. I'm like, you don't have to. I'm seeing
Who
it
said
everywhere.
the Titans
like,
should trade D-Hop?
I'm seeing. I promise y'all. So I'll forward you a post. But like, it's almost like you finally got a position right. If you will remember this, it just reminds me of 2021 when we were like, we had Julio, we had AJ, then we had Josh Reynolds was ticked off because he wasn't getting enough playing time, so they ship him out, right? Like, we're good to go. We already got these two. They both get hurt, and then you have Marcus Johnson, whoever the hell that is, Chester Rogers. So, and then they both get hurt. Johnson had one good game, and then he gets hurt. Then we're like, okay, Des Fitzpatrick, like, you want to start? Like, and we had no business. Like, Racey McMath, like, we're sitting here waiting on – like, you finally got a position right. Don't start shucking it out. People get hurt. All these dudes are old or on old contracts or whatever or short contracts. Like, just finally be good with one position. I would not start shipping anybody out.
It's always a good day when you can talk
you.
about Chester Rogers and Racey McMath. And thank you for
Racey
calling.
McMath. And I held out hope for Racey McMath. Just didn't do it.
Just didn't happen.
Didn't do it.
It's like whenever you've had only like crappy boyfriends in the past and then you find a really great one and you're like, well, something's up. So I've got to just go ahead and ruin this and break off with this guy. You finally feel like you have really good depth and experience at a position group that, frankly, the Titans just haven't had in a really long time. Unless what you would get in return would be so great that you can't pass it up. I don't see why. And D-Hop, that is the craziest thing that I've heard. I don't know why you would ever consider moving on from D-Hop. But unless the return that you could get for a Burks is so great that you can't pass it up and is much more valuable than what Traylon Burks could potentially become, or what you think is in the realm of possibility of what Traylon Burks can become, you don't do that move.
No, you don't. The only way I could see them trading D-Hop is if they're into the season and the season's not going well and another team needs a wide receiver desperately because theirs got hurt, their one or two got hurt. Then there's a possibility. But other than that, I don't see them trading D-Hop, especially not to a team within the AFC at least. You have Adam is right. For the first time in a long time, you have a stable, it seems to look as if you have a stable receiving core. And they haven't had this in a while, at least to my knowledge, because When I left, I was still playing, so I don't know how the receiver core. I know individuals like Nate and guys like that did well, but I don't know their core as a whole, how good they were. But this may be the best core of top 3, top 4, top 5 guys they've had in a long time. All 5 of those guys have experience playing games, playing meaningful games, making big catches. From the first 3 to Traylon Burks and Nick Westbrook-Akine. So they have the experience. Now, Traylon lacks, he's the least of the experienced ones, but they still have guys that have made plays in this league. So this receiving core is, to my knowledge, the best receiving core they've had in a very long time. So why would you look to move away from anybody, especially now? Let it play out and see what happens. And if you get into, trade deadline and some things are going on, then that's when you make a decision like that. But not now. Yeah.
Trent Texan says, what about D-Hop? He has 1 year left on his contract, and Boyd signed a 1-year deal. If Levis has a great season, how would you approach that wide receiver crew?
And that's what we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
It's
I think that's a very important question long term, and that's why I say that when the schedule comes out today, and if you get excited and say, well, maybe they can go 9-8. Well, if you don't have D-Hop and you don't have Boyd next year, then what are you doing, right? What's the plan there? They're going to be a year older. Maybe you bring them back, but that's an important question.
Yeah, it is. I think I predict one of the 2 may come back, but be prepared for both of them to be gone. And it's not because I don't think they can play. It's just as you get older, if you still want to be paid the amount you're being paid, then some teams are like, nah, you know what, we're going to segue out of this. You're getting a little bit older. Thank you for your, for all the time, but we're going in another direction. So to me, this is going to be critical moving forward because you're going to have to replace at least one person, maybe 2, because maybe Traylon doesn't work out. Mm-hmm. You possibly may have to replace 3 to 4 receivers next year. Just think about that. Boyd, Hop, Burks, and Nick Westbrook-Akine. You may have to find 4 new receivers next year because the only guy that's truly under contract is Calvin Ridley.
Mm-hmm. And Burks.
Burks, yes, but if he doesn't play well, I don't expect them to hold on to him for another year. So you really have 3 guys that are on expiring contracts right now. So you need to find out if these guys can play, and you need to find out if this thing is going to work and work fast.
We'll get into all of this with Jonathan Hutton. He will join us coming up next. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Look at the time. Look at the time.
Look at the time. It is Hutton o'clock. Noon on a Wednesday. That means it is Hutton o'clock. Jonathan Hutton, Hot Mike with Hutton Withrow joins us now. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. We were talking at the start of the show, it's NFL schedule release day, and once we know, when the Titans are playing and when will it come after the bye week, whose opponent are they playing after a bye week, we'll know, or at least have a better idea of, okay, this is a game the Titans should win, this is a game the Titans definitely will lose. So once we get kind of a 360-degree view of what the schedule is going to look like, we'll have a clearer vision. But if you could come up with a record of what you think could be a solid year for the Titans, or what might answer some of your questions that you could have about Will Levis, what would that be?
Well, I think first off, the unanswered questions about the additions and how impactful they're going to be, especially the first two picks of this draft, Caroline. That comes to mind immediately when we're predicting anything. There are stretches during a season too, where the Titans we've seen where they went a month, nearly a full month. I know the London game was a home game, but they went a long stretch without playing a game at Nissan Stadium. Those all factor into what I would do too. What's a success? What do I view as just sitting here in May? Will Levis, all that. I think like 8-9 wins can put you in the final wild card spot in this league now. Does that answer a lot of questions though? To me, it's not, I go back to the record. It's not if you lose, it's how you lose.
Yeah.
Did they lose Will Levis in October because the offensive line sucked? There's a lot of what ifs to all this, but year one, first year head coach, first year play caller, a quarterback with a new system, but a system that should fit him really well, with a 4-pack of wide receivers, really a 3-pack and a 1 that you want to see more of in Treylon Burks. This should, to me, based on last year and where they want to go and how they build, and I still feel like they're another offseason away from truly contending in the division. That would be a success in my eyes, just sitting here, just 30,000-foot view, really just very surface level with all of this.
Right, like if the Titans go 13-4 or 4-13, ideally you would have a clearer vision of the quarterback position, assuming Will Levis stays healthy. You'll know one way or another, okay, he's our guy or he's not. My biggest fear, Hut, whether it's due to injury or like a mucky middle 9-8, 8-9, that we still have pretty big questions about Will Levis's future and if he can be a franchise quarterback.
Yeah, but they're clearly building around him, and if I know that the Vegas odds, for the top picks in the draft next year, they've got the Titans second or third worst in terms of odds to have a top 5 pick. So a top 5 pick, which would make them second or third worst in the NFL Vegas odds wise. So take that for what it's worth. But I think some of these early mocks have them taking a quarterback too, Caroline. I think I heard you say that last week.
Carson Beck, welcome to Nashville.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, Will Levis should have every opportunity to exceed expectations, which I think are pretty flatline right now. I don't know what to expect from Will Levis in this system because I'm still viewing Will Levis, the quarterback at Kentucky, instead of the quarterback I saw last year because of the system and the offensive line that I saw last year. I want to see him with a Bill Callahan offensive line, with a coach that knows quarterbacks and has coached some of the best, period, and the development that they can have with every asset possible around him. You should learn quite a bit about the quarterback this year in year 2. And he's not the only QB that's going in with a new head coach, although I think he's in a better situation right now than Bryce Young.
Yeah, it seems to be that. It seems that to be the way it looks in regards to
Bryce
Young.
Let me ask you guys this: we will discuss a lot about Will Levis, and that's the biggest question, right? If we end up in 2024, if we still don't know, don't we know?
Yeah, if you don't know, you know.
I think you come out of this with a definitive answer regardless.
Yeah, but let me throw a counter. Did we know about Jared Goff at that age?
I think we did.
We did
after Fisher left
at Will Levis's age.
Yes.
Well, he was.
Well, we knew he could take a team to the Super Bowl.
Did you know about Mariota after year 2?
I don't think so.
Mariota after year 2.
I liked what I saw from
Actually,
Mariota
after year 2, he looked good. So you were like, okay, he can do this. But then it completely fell off the table.
I still think the picture is good or bad, still incomplete after next year. That's how I would answer.
And hey, I agree. And the incomplete thing, though, I just put it in the same pot that I've always put these other discussions, right? Like we tend to not really put all our chips in that basket. And if you can't do that in this league, you're not going to have success. And I especially, hey, Willie, especially in this offense, like that, this is an offensive minded driven football team now. So I don't think they sit around and wait and see what happens. McVay didn't sit around and wait on Goff, even though he'd been to a Super Bowl appearance, for instance.
But I think that Goff, we had a great discussion about him yesterday and how a quarterback can go down a winding road a little bit because he has turned into a really good quarterback who just got paid unbelievably well. And his team looks like it's going in the right direction. And so and I use Mariota as another good one that Caroline just brought up. We did the stats of his second year. It looked pretty good. I think last week when you were on, but we talked about that. So, I mean, there could be some false hope, and then there could be giving up too early.
But there was, after year 2, it was still, I mean, Mariota was the face of the team. He was the face of the franchise. He was the number 2 pick. But it was still run-based. It was still offensive line, bully ball. You know, like this. I think we learn more about the quarterback now than maybe we have, period, because it's on his arm more than it is in the backfield.
Yeah, you're right about that. Now, let's continue with this with Will Levis, because I look at it from this standpoint, and we talked about this, them bringing in the receivers that they did. They brought in a veteran group of receivers. Yeah. So to me, it tells me that they're trying, if they want to know, and they want to know quickly about Will Levis. And when I say quickly, they want to know by the end of this season, they want to know if he's the quarterback or not. Because if he's not, I do believe they're going to go in another direction. Because again, this wasn't my guy in a sense. It was, but it wasn't in a sense, meaning the head coach saying it. The GM could say it was my guy, but the head coach saying that, listen, this is not my guy. I can't work with him. So they're surrounding him with 3 veteran guys that have made a lot of plays in this league. And if we don't know after this season, we got to move on. Because under any other circumstance, with 3 veteran receivers that have played considerable amount of snaps in this league, that have made a lot of plays, and if we still have questions after this season with we hope an upgraded offensive line, then we have to move on. We don't have time to sit and wait whether you get it right, because there are 2 teams above us right now that feel they've gotten it right. I'm not counting Indianapolis. They may think that. But Jacksonville and Houston, they think we got our quarterback. Well, you need to find out if you have your quarterback quickly. And quickly means this year. If you don't know if you have your quarterback this year, then you may have to look at drafting another one in the first round.
Yeah, but I don't know if they fully move on from Levis though, Mace, because of the.
But you're setting him up to be. You're setting him up with the weapons that a young quarterback would love. 3 veteran guys that have made a lot of plays shorthanded. If you can't operate under this, what makes you think you can operate under anything else? I look at it how I looked at Joe Flacco. Okay. Joe Flacco proved that he can operate when veteran guys are on, and he excels. So they said, okay, this is our guy. And they started adding pieces around. They started getting younger at that position. That's the same thing with Will Levis. We need to find out. If you can't do it with 3 veteran guys that we all have said are really good veteran guys playing on and off the field, if you can't get it done with them with an upgraded offensive line, I'm not sure if you can get it done. So I need to protect my job, this organization. I may just have to draft another quarterback in the first round.
Well, and that may be the case. I just I think
I'm not
that he's-
advocating for that, but I'm just giving you the
Yeah. But I don't think when you say move on, I think he's still on the roster. I think he's just going into 2025 in competition.
Okay.
Like because his salary plays a factor here. He's not so bad that he can't even be on the roster and be in competition with whoever they bring in, right? Like I don't think he would sour the way Kenny Pickett soured in Pittsburgh after that season. So after that type of season where there's an uncertainty and they're bringing in a vet, I think the Titans would still go young and want to develop underneath Callahan. So you'd still have Levis there too. And I mean, I don't sit here and say I have low expectations for him. I actually, I mean, I have reasonable expectations given that I'm also saying that there's still another full offseason away from where they need to be. And so I do factor that into my expectations for the quarterback play too. I don't think he falls flat on his face. And I don't think that he has some breakout year where we're talking about a Pro Bowl like season that's like a CJ Stroud type performance. But I just don't think he sucks. And because of that, I don't think you can just fully say that peace out, we're moving on. I think at worst, there's an uncertainty as we sit here next year, knowing who's going to win the starting job for week 1 against their opponent when the schedule's released.
Now, how do you think this thing plays out on the right side of the offensive line? We got a good idea of what the left side is going to look like with Latham, Skoronski, and Cushenberry. Yeah. But how do you think this right side is going to fare out? Is it going to be Nicholas and Dylan Ratens competing for that tackle, or do you think they shift Ratens inside a guard and just let Nicholas and whoever else just compete at that right tackle?
I mean, I don't know about you. I think Nicholas Petit-Frere should win that job at right. Like I've got him. Yeah, I mean, so here's to me the biggest storyline other than what is taking place at left tackle right now. With Latham and whether or not he transitions well, and they clearly think he's going to be fine. I mean, they've been pretty certain in their answers there. It's one of two things. It's either Cushenberry for me up front, which they desperately have missed Ben Jones, and if he steps in and becomes that type of glue guy, that is a huge asset for the offensive line. And a huge piece that they have back. That's either the biggest storyline after Latham, or it's which of the two spots on the right side of the offensive line does Bill Callahan work his magic on to the point where there's just confidence and there's no more questions about who the guy is at that position. Is it Nicholas Petit-Frere? Is it Dylan Radins? Which guy is going to have more of the dog in him, more of the plant the opponent across the line from you into the ground type mentality? That guy
I would
wins
sleep.
the job
I would sleep a lot easier if I knew Nicholas Petit-Frere could be counted on.
Yeah.
At the let's just say at the right tackle, because I'm gonna lead into this debate we had yesterday with Carolina D-Mase, because obviously that would mean that Latham is your left tackle. That's your perfect scenario, right? All of a sudden, I got two tackles that I feel pretty good about. They're both pretty young. Hey, I'm sleeping really well.
Concept.
No drip at night.
Two tackles.
I don't have the Andrew Brunette drip keeping me up late at night, like worrying, like what do I do? How do I get out of this? What's the best way to do this? And
right
really, now they've got it. Right now, Rand Carthon's got the drip. Is Latham going to be the left tackle? Everybody's saying, I don't know. And then just Nick Petit-Frere coming back? Like, these are major question marks that have got to keep you up at night.
Just to tag off that, if you're sleeping well at night about right tackle, that means left tackle's taken care of too. Because
I get that.
Petit-Frere would be the left tackle. They would swap them, right? Like, I'm trying to think about what they would do. That's who they put in last year when Carthon was still there. And we just don't know about Petit-Frere because he's missed so much time. So that to me is the biggest issue with him. One of them was a 6-game suspension that was reduced, but like some of it's injury. So I just I think if he's available, he's your right tackle right now.
All right. So here's my follow-up question, and these guys pushed back on me pretty hard yesterday with this. Okay. I'm a little bit more of a realist when it comes to when you're the 7th pick in the draft, right? I think everybody especially in the months right after you draft him, they've got this vision and the hope, and there's absolutely that should be the hope, that if you have the 7th pick, that guy needs to be a star for you, and at the position that you hope he plays. I'm a little bit more of a realist. So here's my middle-of-the-road, long-term scenario, and you tell me if you think this is still a victory.
Okay.
If Latham ends up being, and you can throw Skoronski into this mix too, to some degree, right? 11th pick who immediately went to guard, but I think has a pretty good outlook as a guard. But let's just go with Latham. Latham ends up being a starter, a guy that you invest a second contract in, but it's not at left tackle. It's either at right tackle or at guard. God forbid it would be guard. But
right.
But he's a starter, and he's playing well enough for you to invest a second contract in that. Is that a victory in your mind? Because I would contend that it is. It's not a home run, but it is not a whiff. Like if Isaiah Wilson is a whiff, I mean, he's golden sombrero kind of whiff, right? There's a lot of levels to this. I would say it's a strong ground rule double if you're reinvesting. They didn't even reinvest in Jack Conklin, right? And he's pretty good. So how would you answer that? How would you answer that? Because
it's tough. Willy,
you give me your argument, and I have my rebuttal ready. I've been thinking about this a lot.
Okay. They don't have many second contract guys, okay? So that I'm factoring this into my answer. It's not a bad thing. It's just tough for me to say that if this guy can't be your left tackle that he's drafted to be immediately, but how is he valuable? It's like the road to the next position in a second contract is really rocky. And I don't know how I don't know how you get.
It's a 5-year process, right?
Yes.
And you've got 4 years to decide on the 5th year.
Yeah, it's a 4-year process. If he's not your left tackle, do you pick up the 5th-year option kind of thing?
Right. That's where I was kind of going with that. So I still say if I know I can count on him as being a solid guy that I know I'm going to get a next contract with, even if it's not as a left tackle, I think that's still marked a success. Even though it's not the home run grand slam that you hope is the ideal.
I can't call it a success, Willie, because I don't think it puts the Titans in a position of success. Like that pick is really, really crucial for them. For the quickest route to success, I'm talking about.
No doubt.
If this is a 5 or 6 year plan, like we're not talking. The Titans shouldn't be pushing towards the Atlanta Falcons outlook here, right? Like
right. And that's why I preface it by saying I'm trying to. This is more of a realistic. Everything everything work out? Because my thought would be, and I haven't done the research. I haven't done the scrolls, D-Mase, but I feel like the scrolls. I might have to get a page going on this in the scrolls. Let's take a draft and take the top 10 picks. Random years. Pick 5 years from the last 20 years, and let's take a look at the results of those 10 players. Because I would say in a given year, this is just how I would view it. Of those 10 players, there's going to be at least 2 or 3 that are complete busts.
And of those 10 general managers, how many of them still have jobs?
I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about the success of the top 10 pick, because everybody hopes that when they pick a guy in the top 10, that he turns out.
Works out. That's the expectation.
Yeah.
But it's not the reality, right? Of those top 10 picks, there's going to be in a given year 2 or 3 that bust.
And those teams aren't going to be very good.
Okay, but that's my point. But this is regardless of who the teams are, what the year is. Would you agree if we did that research? And I'll do the research.
Yeah.
That 2 or 3 out of 10 are going to be disappointing.
Of course.
Well,
very disappointing.
But that doesn't make it
right?
acceptable for this team.
Because and Hutt makes a good point. This is a lot of those guys are quarterbacks, and we know there's a lot of busts. Mm-hmm. There's probably 50% rate busts in that. There'll be another 2 or 3 out of the 10 that are what I just kind of described, right? Good players, maybe get the second contract, but aren't superstars, right? But they're play for a long time and are starters. And then maybe 2 or 3 of the other ones are the home run that we're looking for. Is that a reasonable assumption of any top 10?
I guess my
Yeah, yes or no? I mean, do you agree with that? Am I way off base by saying that those are probably what you're going to find?
My view of it is I don't view it as a home run if a guy plays the
No, that's not my question.
That's not.
No, I'm not. I'm asking you the question of a top 10, regardless of position, regardless of year, regardless of team. Am I way off base by those numbers of the 10 picks? Two or three busts.
How do you classify
Two or three busts. 2 or 3 good. I would put him in the
Davis,
middle class. He was a good player on the lower end of a good player. Below what I'm saying for Latham would be a success, right? But Davis was a good player on a good team. He wasn't a bust, right?
Okay.
And he obviously wasn't a home run.
Well,
so he's again. There's a lot of Corey Davises out there in any top 10, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So I'm just saying,
no doubt.
So the percentage chance of Latham being a home run is about 30-40%.
What's a home run?
Well, I think
a home run is he's a left tackle. You reinvest in him as a left tackle.
Based on the offensive line, if you just look at the hit rate, the success rate of those picks, line is far greater of a success rate than
now that's a fair
we
point.
would see at wide receiver.
You have a better chance, you think, of hitting a top 10 lineman than top 10 quarterback.
But I don't view moving spots as a hit. You said for that if you're going to hit
that's why I asked the question is because I still think if you've got certainty, if you've got a good guy, even if he's not the ideal position, which is left tackle, I still think that's a victory to a level. I said it wasn't a home run, but it's still a success if he's really good as a guard or a right tackle.
Well, if you put him at right tackle and he excels, then
there's a level right tackle versus guard, right?
It's always a good thing or a hit when you can get a guy that is on a second contract and he's been a player for you, regardless of what position. He's been that guy that you can count on. You didn't have to worry about him. I understand we had to move him from left to right, but he's gotten on the right side, and he's played really well, so much so that we don't have to worry about the right side now. Now, we do have to figure out the left side, but it doesn't mean it's a complete bust. It's a complete bust. It's a bust from the standpoint of we still got to look for our left tackle, but it's not a bust in regards to we got a good player. Now, I know how people will look at it. You drafted him to be a left tackle, and I would look at it too like, hey, you drafted me a left tackle. It didn't work out. So that was sort of it's not a pass-fail to me. It's not. It's, okay, he didn't work here. We got to get this right. We got to find someone. But if we can put him somewhere else and he excels at that position, meaning right tackle, then we still got to win.
Right. That's the other question is how is the overall line play with him at this other position? And that's the beauty, I think. Maybe I want him to work out at left tackle. Oh, we all do. Yeah. We all do. That's the home run. That's the home run. But I'm saying there's a lot of the percentage chance of it being a home run, just like any hitter that comes up to the plate. Nobody hits a home run every time. So this is why I think maybe it's an important question. If the quarterback doesn't get it, you can't move him to receiver. You can't move him to running in most cases, right?
That's right.
A lineman, you do have the ability to move him up around the line and find a better spot. There's not a lot of other positions. Like if you draft a wide receiver, are you going to move him to running back? You're going to move him to defensive back? In college, maybe, but not in the NFL, right? You've got these levels. You got more of a level of success, and maybe that's the answer to your question, Hut, about success rate of offensive linemen. I would say the levels of success would be in there.
Yeah, and wide receiver in Corey Davis's place, you draft A.J. Brown, and you have an alpha come in, and he's the number one that kind of covers up the fact that the fifth overall pick is not the number one. But see, perception's reality here. They draft Peter Skoronski, and they play him at guard. They never try him at tackle, and he's a guard. Now, if they tried him at left tackle and they move him to guard, to me, they moved him because he wasn't good outside, and they've pieced him inside. But they've labeled him as a guard, and the new regime has done that too. With Latham, he's the left tackle. They didn't sit around and say we're going to play him at both. We'll see where he fits, like they did with Dylan
For better
Ravens.
or worse, they did say that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but to me, he's the left tackle, and they did a lot of work on that. If he's not that guy, Mase, you brought up how's the offensive line play, or Willy, how's the offensive line play if he moves to a different position and solidify? I mean, how's the quarterback play if he's not the left tackle? Not very well.
Depends on who they find.
There's a disaster up front to where I don't know how he moves a spot unless it's early on. He moves to a different spot and it's labeled some type of success, because I think as a whole, it's going to fail. Like they need him to be the guy that they've invested in. And to what you're saying, they need him to be at a level as a top 10 pick that is good at left tackle, right? Like not good at on the right side of the offensive line, as just a piece to the offensive line as they continue to look for their left tackle.
Last one for you, Huck, quickly. How many primetime games do you think the Titans are going to end up with this upcoming season?
Are we counting Thursday?
Sure.
You got to count.
Is that prime
You got to
time?
count Thursday. Every team gets a Thursday game, don't
Not
they?
anymore.
Yeah, you're right. They
Not
changed
anymore.
it.
Last year was the first year that not every team gets a Thursday.
I mean,
night
before
game.
the flex, I mean, I think that maybe they get a Monday night game late in the season. So that I think the Jets are rumored to be week 2 for the Titans.
At
here.
Chicago, rumored to be week 1.
Week 1 at Chicago. Week 2 at here against the Jets. Week 8 in Detroit, I think.
Week 11 at home against the Vikings.
Okay.
That's all we
and
know.
now we're getting into flex. We're getting into the flex period there. Yeah, I mean, I think they'll be lucky to have anything other than Thursday night.
I think so too.
I'm with you on that one.
Hud, appreciate your time and your insight as always. Appreciate you for stopping by, and we'll catch up next week.
At Chicago is interesting week 1.
Caleb Williams.
A lot of change there. So, yeah. Paint your
Very
fingernails, guys.
Interesting. On
Get
the
'em ready.
edge of my seat from now until September.
See ya.
All right, appreciate it, Hut. Okay, I want to get back into that conversation about the J.C. Latham, where he ends up, what's considered a home run. We'll get into that coming up next. We'll also get into some of your thoughts as well, 615-737-1025. And like I just mentioned, a rumor at Chicago week 1. All eyes on Caleb Williams and Roma Dunze week 1. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, we are brought to you by Zen Sports. Start earning cash rewards on your bets today. Gambling problem, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and in Tennessee to bet. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase. Hey, join Cromwell Media along with local athletes and musicians at Hermitage Golf Course on June 20th for the 615 Open. Make a difference while supporting Souls for Souls. Every $20 raised goes to a new pair of shoes for a local child experiencing homelessness. So sign up to play or sponsor at 615open.com. Appreciate Jonathan Hutton for stopping by last segment. And Willie brought up a point that we were talking about yesterday, but I do want to revisit here. And it's the idea of J.C. Latham not working out at left tackle. And Willie, you said that your home run situation would be if J.C. Latham is your starting left tackle, good enough to stay there and to get a second contract.
That's a home run.
I think that where we have a disconnect here and where I'll disagree is that's not my perception of a home run.
Playing left tackle and getting a second contract is not a home run?
No. Because if you're the 7th overall pick and I draft you to be a left tackle, a home run is not just you playing the position that I drafted you to be in. Like a home run with the 7th overall pick, and I think that matters where he was drafted. If you're a home run with the 7th overall pick, like you got to be Jonathan Ogden. Like you need to be an all-pro left tackle. That to me
so
is
Hall of Famer.
Absolute.
He should be a Hall of Famer then. The 7th pick in the draft.
Is it? That would be a home run. Yeah.
I would say that's a home run, but how many Hall of Famers based on 7th picks in the draft are there? I mean, that's shooting for the stars. That's not just a home run.
If you're an all-pro left tackle,
that's World Series Game 7 Grand Slam.
That's a Grand Slam right there.
If you were an all-pro
you said
left
he
tackle,
should be a Hall of Famer. Jonathan Ogden he's one of the greatest of all time, is he not?
Yeah. Yeah.
To be a home run with the 7th overall pick, like if you the
well,
Titans
that's why I present
J.C.
to you how many. Let's go through all the top 10 picks.
Tackle, that's not that's great. That's hitting on the pick. That's not a home run. That was a good pick that you found your left tackle with the 7th overall.
I would say with the money you need to invest, they turned down the opportunity to even pick up the 5th-year option on Jack Conklin, who was really good. Mm-hmm. So when you reinvest in a left tackle for a second contract, you're going to pay big money.
Yeah.
That's a home run if you're willing to do that.
And the Titans not picking up Jack Conklin's second deal, I think, was a mistake.
Of course it was.
So if you are able to
but
pick
why
up
didn't
the
they do
second
it?
deal,
It's not because they didn't think he was good. It was because it was the injury, and they didn't want to pay the money. And they were up against the cap. They had choices to make, but they didn't prioritize him enough, which was a mistake. In hindsight, for sure. I thought at the time.
So I don't think it's a home run if you don't make that same mistake again.
I think, but with your investment in a second contract to a left tackle, that's a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So to me, you feel pretty good about where he's going at that point. So to me, that's a home run.
I mean,
there's different. I don't know how he's going to play.
I don't label this as a home run or not. I label it as
Did you hit on the pick?
Is this a guy we can plug in that space and we don't have to worry about him for the next 8 to 10 years?
That's a home run.
Or 5 to 10 years. Let's say that, 5 to 10 years, because once you get in free agency, some team just may outbid you and give the guy an extreme amount of money. You just don't want to compete with that, so you allow him to walk. So if I'm getting 5 years, at least 5 years, a guy that I don't have to worry about, I'm good with that. He doesn't need to be I would love for him to be a Hall of Famer. I would love for him to be a All-Pro, but everybody can't be an Hall of Famer and a All-Pro.
I can't consider that a home run.
But that doesn't mean that pick wasn't a good pick. Why? Because we hadn't had to worry about that pick for the last 5 to 10 years. That's a good pick. When I ain't got to worry about him, he's a starter. I ain't got to worry about – I'm talking about the offensive line. I'm not talking about receivers and stuff like that. If I plug him in there day one and – day 5,000 or 10, day 5,000, 10,000, he's still my tackle. That's a good pick.
Okay,
it would be a bad decision to not extend him.
Is it a successful pick?
Good pick. I hope they decide not to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I hope they extend the contract. If you got a guy like that has been playing good football for you for the last 4 or 5 years, you should want to reinvest in him now.
Like Conklin, good pick. Bad decision to not decide
right.
to extend him.
Lewan, they made the highest paid left tackle at the time when they got him to a second contract. Now, we can argue whether he was a home run, but they hit on that pick.
Yeah.
Right? He was a good player. He had a lot of ups and downs. It's a
He averaged out
documented
to be
story,
a
right? He lost the
solid-
captaincy.
he
got
averaged to
hurt.
be a
He got
solid player.
suspended. But overall,
pick.
it was a good pick. Would we agree that if they reinvest in Latham as the left tackle, it's at least a hit of the pick?
Of course.
Okay, so we're arguing whether it's a home run, what you consider a home run. To
Yeah.
me, a home run, though, is if you hit and he is then invested in big money. To me, that's satisfying. Like, that's good. My question, though, is if you moved him to another spot on the line and you got high-level play, to me, that's still a hit. It's not the same level of a hit as if he hits at left tackle. But it's still a hit if you produce, because there's so many levels below that. There is the absolute lowest at the bottom. If we were to make a visual chart, you would start with Isaiah Wilson at the bottom, right? And there's a whole lot of different ones in between. Jonathan Ogden,
Yes.
and
Those are two
Isaiah
extremes.
Wilson. Those are the two extremes.
Yes, but I would reiterate the process question that I have, that if J.C. Latham can't work out at left tackle and you move him to right, there's a process in between there where you learn that he's not going to work at left tackle.
yeah.
And in that process, your quarterback is going to get killed. And that's my concern.
Sure, but the reason I asked the question, I think, is because we're having this debate of, well, is he going to be a left tackle or not? And it's a good question, right? It's going to be something we watch for the next couple years. The other part of it is, I think there are too often times where we don't realize how often a top 10 pick busts. Like, there's all this, he's the 7th pick, so he needs to be a star. It's not the reality over time.
Do I want him to be a star? Absolutely.
I hope he's a star. But sometimes there's a lot of levels of where a 7th pick can go. Just because he's the 7th pick, the 7th pick every year doesn't hit. There's a star one year, there's a bust one year, and there's a lot of in between in other years. I know there will be consequences if he doesn't. Yeah, there were consequences when Corey Davis didn't turn into a star receiver, but they still won a lot of games. They found a way to compensate for it and still win. So it's not just about the one
AJ
guy.
Brown.
Yeah, it's a little bit easier to do that when you can go out and draft an A.J. Brown.
Yes.
And listen, Corey Davis was a good player. Now, listen, whether he warranted the position he was drafted in or not, yeah, we can argue that or go back and forth with that all day. But what I'm not going to go back and forth with is that he wasn't. He was a good, solid player for this team. He didn't rise to the potential that we thought he would being drafted that high, but yet and still they got some good production out of him. And then when they married him with A.J. Brown, it was like, okay, we got what we want in our room. But then they chose not to re-sign him back. And we saw what happened the next following year, so they didn't have that other guy to sort of to alleviate some of the, stress for A.J. Brown.
Like the quarterbacks in San Francisco, I think, is the perfect example of that. Of if San Francisco didn't draft Brock Purdy with the last pick in the draft, everyone in San Francisco probably would have been fired because of what they did to get Trey Lance. But that situation and that pick didn't seem so bad because they found their quarterback in Brock Purdy and they found themselves back into the Super Bowl. If J.C. Latham doesn't turn out at left tackle because Jalen Duncan, under the tutelage of Bill Callahan, ends up being an absolute superstar at left tackle, now we're talking about a different story here because you've got your solution at left tackle and ideally J.C. Latham could move over on the right side and you got two great bookends. But if J.C. Latham can't work out at left tackle, well then you got to move him to right, and now you still have the question that we've been asking for the last 3 years. Who is the left tackle?
A.J. Brown. Like you find your A.J. Brown or you have a
It's
Derrick
not easy
Henry.
to find an A.J. Brown.
Obviously. But that is how you have to go about it. Every team has... There's no team that every year has the first-round pick works out, the second-round pick works out, the third-round pick works out, every free agent works out. Everybody's got successes and failures. You have to have more successes than failures. You have to go find it. Maybe it is Jalen Duncan makes a big jump, and you're like, oh, we actually have a guy that's a serviceable starter here. We can make this work.
I wouldn't put my money on it, but that would be great.
No, but I wouldn't put my money on because he's the 7th pick in the draft, he's going to be a home run. It doesn't work out. That's not a good bet.
But
really,
I don't think that's an excuse. that this front office can make of
Okay,
look, seventh round, seventh overall picks in the past, they haven't worked out. So if this one doesn't work out, it's going to be okay.
All right.
No.
The first 3 picks were quarterbacks, correct?
Yes.
How many of those quarterbacks will be busts? How many will be stars?
I would say I would put my money on one potentially being a star.
One will be a bust.
And those
probably,
are quarterbacks.
Right.
Yes.
So will there be consequences for the team? They'll have to look for another quarterback, right?
And they might lose their jobs.
They might
not be able
but
to
this
look
is
for another
but they still pick the quarterback and they know what
Yes.
they know what the odds are. One of them is going to bust. So
Yes.
7th picks in the draft bust sometimes, and sometimes they're pretty good players. Maybe all 3 of these quarterbacks will be pretty good quarterbacks. Maybe none of them will be a star. There's so many ways it can go, but you can't just sit there and say because he's the 7th pick, he's got to play left tackle and he has to be a star or else he's a bust.
Well, I'm not saying he has to be a left tackle.
That's the beauty of him not being a quarterback.
I say he has to play left tackle because the general manager said he's going to play left tackle.
At the beginning. But they may find that he's better suited at right tackle. That's what everybody's worried about right now, right?
If he does
what if he turns out to be a great right tackle?
Well,
that's still a good thing. That's a good thing.
But you still have to, I understand what Caroline is saying. Even if that does happen, yes, now I got my right tackle solved.
But at least it's not a quarterback where he's a total bust, and now we got to go. Well, now we're in trouble. He's still a useful player, and maybe a really good player on the right side. That's a hit.
But you still you still affect the quarterback. I'm not saying it's not a hit, but you can't sort of push the goalpost a little bit further back just because he didn't work out. Oh, you want him to be your left tackle. You've told everybody he's a left tackle. If it doesn't work out, you can't then move the goalpost and say, well, he's our right tackle now. We're fine. We're good. He's going to play right. Well, who's the left tackle? Because you told us he was your left tackle. Keep the goalpost right where it is. You put him on the right. Okay, that's good. We got the right side solidified. I get it. But the goalpost still hasn't moved for the left tackle. We still need a left tackle.
It happens around the league.
So I get that.
It happens in the league. It's happened many
times
to many
just
teams.
Leave him at left
it's a
tackle.
dilemma, but I still would take that as opposed to
I get
a total bust that doesn't play.
I understand what you're saying.
That's why I'm asking. That's why I'm saying it right now.
Prize.
Because that could happen. He
it's
could
like
end up sliding to the right,
you go.
and everybody's freaking out. Oh my God, he's not playing left. But what if he's a really good right tackle? That's okay.
No, it's not
I'm
a bad
okay with
thing.
that.
But we still have.
I hope it doesn't happen. I hope he goes left tackle.
We still would have to go. They still would have to go out and get a left tackle. My thing is this. Everybody's talking about he needs to be this. He needs to be 7th pick in the draft. He needs to be this is what what he needs to be is a guy I don't have to worry about. So if I put you out there, I'm good. Do I want you to be a Hall of Famer? Yeah, I do. Who wouldn't want that?
Right.
But if you can't, everybody can't be in Hall of Famer. Everybody can't be an All-Pro. If you get the job done, you're doing what we're asking you to do. My quarterback is not getting hit in the back of the head every other play. Then you've done your job. That's all I need to worry about. Now we will worry about it 3 or 4 years later, 5 years later when we got to sign you to a new contract. That's going to be the sticking point because if you are not an elite tackle, then we got to start squabbling with the money. Are you worth this? Are you worth that? But we know you're a good left tackle.
Yeah.
You're just not the top 5. But you're not the bottom 10 either. You're like 11th.
Right. It's not a bad
And that's
pick
good.
if
Exactly.
it's not in Canton eventually.
Exactly.
But we do need to take a break, but I do want to get into your thoughts on this coming up next. We are right to your phone. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 1025-1063 The Game.
That means I get a
Caroline, Willy, D-Mase. So Stillman and Company will air an interview. Jared sat down with Pecorino yesterday, so that will air live at 3 p.m. So next hour, we'll give a little bit of a preview of what Pekka had to say about the goalie position, because we haven't talked enough about the future of the goaltender position. I'm kidding.
We haven't talked about it at all.
I'm kidding. But we'll hear the entirety of the interview at 3 p.m. on Stillman and Company, and a little tidbit coming up next hour. But first, I want to get right into your thoughts. We've been having the J.C. Latham discussion of if he doesn't work out at left tackle, then what? I said, look, if he can't work out at left tackle, you didn't hit on the pick because you picked him to be a left tackle, and there's several different layers there. But I do want to get your thoughts on this. Kenny the mailman is on the line. Phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. What's up, Kenny?
Hello, good friends. How are y'all doing?
Doing great.
Listen, I love listening to y'all, and when I listen, I mean not just on in the background. I like listening closely. Don't y'all love it when Willie Donick shifts into his district attorney mode? He was asking y'all questions, and y'all tried to answer in a polite, nice way, in your own way. I heard him pounding the table and saying, answer yes or no, yes or no.
I gave it to Tom Cruise from A Few Good Men.
Yeah.
Answer the
You
question.
can't handle the truth. And here's what's funny. For a quarter of a century, Willie has been known to answer every question. Well, yes and no.
That's right.
But
There's always a yes and a no.
here's the definitive answer. If it's just a question of keeping him or not in a few years, that's a victory for the Titans, because we haven't had one even hang around for us to question whether we're going to keep him long enough or not. So I'm hoping it's part of the discussion in a few years. Until then, we got to win some games.
Yeah.
Yes and no. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you, Kenny. Appreciate it.
Kenny.
He's
Look,
right. He's got to win.
Right. And I love having these debates, and that's what I enjoy about a discussion. Mm-hmm. I don't think you have to have one take, and the answer is yes or no, black and white. I do think there's that. That's why I'm trying to set up the levels of success. That's what I like to call nuanced discussion, and not hot take radio. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's the way I'm always going to do it. That's why I've done it for 30 years. I hope people enjoy that. But Kenny did bust my, know what, right there. That's good.
Mode.
Hot take, Willie Donick.
But I'm okay with that. Yeah, I'm okay if people think I'm going to give you both. I'm going to give you nuanced and levels and research. That's okay. I can live with that.
But again, it's not that you don't have your opinion, but you do see both sides, or you can see both sides, but it doesn't mean you're going to change your opinion, so to speak, because you are able to sort of see both sides of the coin.
I'll ask another question. If they got exactly the return that Taylor Lewan gave them,
I'm good with it.
Are you good with that?
Oh, yeah, I'm good with that.
Minus the injury, but I'm good with it.
Well, minus the injury, you got to take.
And a suspension.
Well, and
see, that's what I did. Like,
suspension.
Lewan had a long list of good, and then we lost the captaincy. He got suspended. He got hurt.
Got booed against the Cardinals.
He did get booed.
I could do without all that, but
if you would take the
overall, I can do.
But that's a far cry from Jonathan Ogden.
Yeah, it is.
But I'm not saying that he has to be Jonathan Ogden. I was saying to be considered a home run, that's what he would have to be. To be a good pick,
but that's
be a starting left tackle and protect the quarterback.
But what is that? That's the nuance of the discussion, right? That's what Kenny is pointing out. And that's what I'm trying to point out, that I would still consider a reinvestment in a left tackle, in my book, would be a home run. Now, maybe I'm playing Fenway Park home run as opposed to the old Astrodome home run.
You're talking Lindsey Nelson home run.
We have different definitions of what a home run is, but that's a nuanced discussion. That's not black and white. That's not seventh pick has to be a Hall of Famer or he's a bust.
To be considered a home run, that's what I would consider for the 7th overall pick. But if you sign him to a second contract and he keeps your quarterback upright and he's a solid starting left tackle, I will take that.
So what's Lewan in your mind? If he's not a home run, double?
A solid starting left tackle? Sure, a double.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that too.
Greg's on the line with a thought on the Titans Week 1 matchup, which it is rumored to be on the road at Chicago. Caleb Williams' NFL debut. What's up, Greg?
Hey, I think that's a perfect way to start, because that's going to be a high-profile game, probably a CBS game. Everybody will be looking at it. Caleb Williams. I was going to ask you then, week 2, it looks like Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. So that'd be another high-profile game, them coming in there, so the Titans will get a little bit of attention. As far as your left tackle, what is Trent Williams now? He plays left tackle. If you got like a Trent Williams type of player, that would be a Hall of Fame home run type player, right? That's what you would probably want to say. Mean, nasty guy, kind of like D-Mase did when he returned those kicks. Mm-hmm. You want an all-pro type of player. So if you get I think a Trent Williams type of player, you got a home run player. Guys doing a good job. Carolina, what about those LSU Tigers at USC in week 1? Give me a thought on that game.
LSU
I might
minus
go out to
6.5.
Vegas and watch it.
Take it.
Appreciate you guys.
LSU minus 6.5.
You're right. Trent Williams would be a home run pick because Trent Williams will go down, I believe, as a Hall of Famer. So that is sort of the home run. But listen, you can win series, you can win World Series, you can win regular series, you can win games with doubles and triples and singles. If he turns out to be a double minus the injuries, as Lawan was, then I will take that. Why? Because Lawan went to a second contract when he was starting and not hurt. We didn't worry about the left side of the line. Why? Because Taylor Lawan had it taken care of. Now, minus the injuries, if he turns into Taylor Lawan, I'm good with that. Because we didn't have to worry about Taylor Lawan until the injuries start to occur.
If I don't notice you,
exactly.
I consider that a success.
Taylor Lawan was noticed. Early.
Oh, because of
he made himself noticed.
He made himself noticed.
But he also lost the captaincy.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He made himself noticed.
He had some ups and downs, but at the end of the day, I think he's at least a double. But my question also ranges more of the relative success of 7th picks overall. We have this image of 7th pick equals got to be a double, got to be a home run. There's a lot of big-time busts. There's a lot of whiffs. There's a lot of pop-outs with the 7th pick, regardless of position. So I'm just saying a double, let's not sneeze at a double. And my argument is if he did, by chance, move to right tackle and be really good, that's still a hit. You might argue whether it's a double, single, triple home run, but it's still a hit on the 7th pick. Whereas I think people have this image, he's got to play left tackle or else it's a fail. What are they going to do? Somebody's getting fired.
They drafted him to be.
Yes.
Like if Will Levis ends up being a great kicker, is that a good pick?
No, but that's not reality. The reality is a lot of times linemen do move to different positions. Just like a corner could be moved to safety. I used to hear Floyd Reese every year talk about so-and-so prospect. He's a corner now. Worst case, we move him to safety. He could be a really good safety. That happened with plenty of successful players, and it's not perfect. It's not what you, quote, drafted him to be, but he's still a really good player for hopefully a successful team.
To the caller's point about primetime week 1, I'm looking at the schedule. What we know so far doesn't look like it's going to be a primetime game. I also can't say that Tennessee Titans and Chicago Bears is a high-profile game, no matter who's quarterbacking for the Bears. That's a little bit of a stretch for me. But it looks like week 1, Seattle at Denver and Dallas at Cleveland.
The Russell Wilson Bowl.
That's a good point. Those are going to be the Sunday afternoon games.
Russell Wilson's exes bowl.
Yeah, all of my exes live in Seattle and also Denver and potentially Pittsburgh very soon.
The Caleb Williams thought comes up. It's when you play a brand new rookie quarterback in his very first game. But it's also, is that an advantage or is it a disadvantage because you haven't seen any tendencies or what they plan on doing with him?
You much either.
Right. It could work either way. You would hope that you could exploit him in his first game and he's going to be better. You'd have a tougher time in week 9. Mm-hmm. But, I don't know if it's an automatic answer. Yeah. Again, nuanced discussion.
He could come out
not a hot take.
Blazing.
But I'm asking the question.
Another primetime game week 1 is another all of my exes live in this place, Rams-Detroit. On Sunday Night Football.
Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford Bowl.
A little bit of
How's old Stafford's arm?
Swapping of spit,
both of the exes came to the wedding, huh?
How's Stafford's health right now? How's his arm? Is he going to be all right?
I'm sure he is.
Is he going to play in that game?
Play my boy. Play my boy. Y'all know who he is.
From the University of Georgia.
Absolutely.
Stetson Bennett.
Yes.
That's your man.
Play my boy Stetson. That's all y'all got to do.
Even though I think he was inactive all of last season.
Well, he got hurt last year, too. He was doing well. They they were liking.
You never
his
know. He
progression.
could be the next Brock Purdy.
Was he
And then he
doing
ended up-
well?
No, that's what the court.
Or
That's
did
what
he
the head
say,
coach
you know,
said.
we really like what Stetson's
That's
been
what
doing?
they said.
in
Hey,
camp?
and then he ended up getting hurt, so we didn't know. But
That
my
would
man
be awesome.
Stetson
If
was
he's
tearing
playing-
it up in
If
L.A.
he's playing in that game, that is going to be the best ever. We're going to have so much fun on the show that day.
Oh, Skylar says if JC Latham wears Taylor Lewan's boss hog hat and outfit, I'll take that.
Nah, that needs to be thrown away, burned, never to appear on a television screen ever again.
All right, coming up next, we're going to hear a sit down between Jared and Pecorine at 3 p.m. We get a little tidbit of that coming up next, and Jared did tell me, look, there's a lot of yelling that we've been doing, and no yelling from Chris Mason or Willy Donick will make me change my mind. Pecorine might change Jared's mind. We'll get into that coming up next. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase, 102.5, 106.3, The Game and The Game Nashville app. We're streaming live on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook Live every single day. And we are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Quick little Titans schedule update. We'll get the full schedule released tonight, but 4 games have been leaked so far, and these are all rumors. Obviously, it'll be confirmed later tonight, and I haven't seen any confirmation from the NFL insiders just yet. But so far, the rumors are Week 1 on the road at Chicago, Caleb Williams' NFL debut. Week 2 at home, Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets come into town. Week 8 at Detroit. Week 11 at home against the Minnesota Vikings. A lot of rookie quarterbacks this year. I guess there's just a lot of rookie quarterbacks in
Maybe that's
general
good.
in the NFL. It could be a good thing. So far, no primetime games listed on the schedule yet, but as we discussed with Jonathan Hutton, I would expect one. Maybe for the Titans this upcoming season. Hopefully more. So that's what we have now. That's what we know now, but we'll keep you updated as some of these games continue to leak out. I'm going to transition our focus into the Nashville Predators because yesterday we were talking about, okay, what comes next? Do you re-sign UC Saros? Do you go into the season with Saros, evaluate at the trade deadline, and after the season, bring Askarov up to kind of learn from Saros this upcoming season? Do you trade Saros if you get a good return and then bring Askarov up behind another goaltender that you can sign in free agency this offseason? All of these things on the table and massive questions that are surrounding Barry Trotz. And I said, look, nothing that we can say right now between our conversations is going to change my mind that I think the Predators should start taking that next step into the future. Moving on from Saros and bringing up Askarov, or moving on from Askarov and re-signing UC Saros. I just don't think that the Predators should hold on to both if both are up in Nashville, assuming that Askarov would come up to Nashville at some point. So I said nothing was going to change my mind. But of course, obviously, hearing it from the horse's mouth, maybe changed my mind a little bit. Hearing it from Pecorine, arguably the greatest player in this team's history at that position. He has a freaking statue up front of the arena. That'll make me change my mind a little bit.
Wait a minute. You just said you wouldn't change your mind.
Our discussions that we would have from
Wait,
you.
so you and C-Mase.
You are not
C-Mase? No, and Barry. No, and Barry.
But
I have Barry too.
I have highlights. I have color coordinated. I
got all the information.
I have scrolls.
You still are not Pecorine.
They're still not.
I was so
to
sad
you.
yesterday, Caroline, when you said nothing is going to make me change my mind. All of these notes and research, I was like, gosh. Oh, that is so devastating. But all Pekka's got to come do is an interview with Jared, and now your mind is wide open.
Oh, that Pecorine has to do.
Now your mind is open. Now you've opened your mind.
When Tom Brady says something about Will Levis, I'll listen to it.
Okay.
If Joe Rexrode says something about Will Levis, I want to say, what the heck does Joe know?
I think we're shortchanging C-Mase a little bit here.
Exactly. Y'all know,
my scrolls are one thing, but I also do listen to
C-Mase did play the position.
I'm very curious to hear what Pekka had to say. And I do appreciate Jared taking the time to go and talk to Pekka. That's a great idea.
He went into it with an open mind.
Did he? Did he really?
I don't believe that for a second, but let's go ahead.
But Jared sat down with Pecorine. We'll hear the entirety of that interview at 3 o'clock on Stillman and Company. But here's a little bit of a tidbit of what Jared had to say with Pecorine.
I do wonder this from your perspective because you spent time in Milwaukee. How important is the extra time in Milwaukee as opposed to, well, he's doing well in Milwaukee, now bring him up here and make him the starting goalie for the Predators?
It's so important. Like at the time when you're a player, like I played 3 years in Milwaukee, and I thought after my first year that I'm ready to play in the NHL, and then I got sent down, played my second year, and I'm like, okay, that's it. I'm ready. And then I got sent down the third time. And it was so hard, but looking back, it was so good for me. I got to play all those 3 years as a number one goalie and got to play a lot, got to make a lot of mistakes, kind of got it out of my system. And when I finally got up, I was already older than these guys at the time, but like Askey but I was ready. So like, I don't know, like, my career could have been totally different without those years in Milwaukee.
And that was Pecorine sat down with Jared. We'll hear the entirety of the interview at 3 o'clock. Thoughts on what Pekka had to say there?
I think Pekka is in line with C-Mase to a large degree. Just to illustrate what Pekka was talking about, Pekka would be considered a little bit more of a late bloomer, right? He was a low pick, and he didn't come over right away. He came. It's a great story. He came to Milwaukee, couldn't speak English, had never been to North America, and had a lot of growing up to do. There was some hilarious stories he's told about how he overslept, didn't have a ride from the hotel to the practice rink. He had to run. He literally jogged to the practice rink to avoid being late. So there's. And he said Kevin Klein, his roommate at the time, who ended up playing for the Predators for a long time, was a godsend who kind of helped him learn the ropes and things like that. But Pekka, as he pointed out, played 3 full years in Milwaukee, and he was a little more seasoned. So up until he was age 26, he only played 3 NHL games. One of them, he came up for the 05-06 team, and he won his first game, and he was kind of an unknown. You're like, hey, this Rene guy, look at this guy, 6'6", looks pretty good. But it was another 2 years before he got in there and started to play. But he was, as he said, much more ready to succeed when he first got in as a guy sort of sharing the duties with Dan Ellis his first year in 08-09, and he ended up, I think, getting, 4th in the Rookie of the Year voting that year. So he was ready to succeed, and by the end of the year, you're like, this guy's pretty special. He's our guy, right? So would you say that kind of falls in line with the patient approach that I'm hearing from Barry Trotz on Askarov?
Yes, and Barry Trotz said you can never over-marinate a goaltender, and I understand that kind of falls into the same, line of thinking. And I know that not every prospect is the same. That what worked for one prospect, what maybe would have worked for Pekka, might not be the same. Maybe it's longer. Maybe it's shorter. And there is the reality of 8th round pick, which doesn't even exist anymore, versus 11th overall pick. I know in hockey it's a lot different than football. If you're the 11th overall pick in football, you're playing tomorrow. It's not the same in hockey.
And there's no minor leagues in football.
That.
Yes.
There's no development.
So you got to play.
Right. I completely understand that. But I think it's interesting perspective, obviously, from Pekka's point of view. And I'm interested to hear the entirety of the interview because Pekka's speaking from his point of view, from his perspective. This is what helped me. And him saying, my career could have been completely different had I been on a different trajectory. Pekka's been working with Askarov. He has the inside information of Askarov. So that's his perspective on his career. How does that compare to Askarov and his development and what he sees for his career?
I trust that Jared has follow-up questions of that nature, and I cannot wait to listen to it.
You can't give all the good stuff away.
Right. I will be listening.
Yeah.
What time is that coming on? 3?
3 o'clock.
Okay. I'm in.
Yeah.
I will be listening.
I mean,
but it is an interesting thing to point out that Pekka is a consultant, right? He is a guy that is working with prospects, and I do think there are a lot of variables. Everybody's different, but I do think the fact remains that goalies take longer in general. Not every single goalie, but goalies take longer to perfect the craft. And as I pointed out with my highlights and research, there are just as many undrafted goalies playing in the league as there are first-round goalies playing in the league. And the biggest group of goalies are non-first-round picks. So to me, there's very little correlation with what round you were picked in and how successful you end up being.
But I think the truth remains, at least for this example, because that's true. And this was one thing that we saw from Sean McIndoe when he did a breakdown of all of the goaltenders in the playoffs, or at least that got into the Stanley Cup playoffs. There were so many levels of, okay, well, there's this guy that was in the first round, and this is a veteran, and he played well, and then that third string guy, like so many different layers and facets and different paths of how you find that goaltender that carries you to and then through the playoffs. But at least we can say for this specific example of Askarov, he is the Predators' top prospect.
He is a prospect. There's no question. He has unbelievable talent, but it still doesn't mean he's going to make it. He's not a can't miss. He is a guy that you really hope, if he fills his potential, could be pretty special.
So now that Pekka said this, now we can put this to bed whether Askarov is ready or not.
No, we're not putting anything to bed.
It seemed like that's
he's not ready.
what it was.
He's not ready now.
The way I have always looked at this is I'm going by, I'm taking the lead of Barry. If Barry says, if he's confident in him, then okay, then bring him up. But if the head coach, meaning if the GM still has questions, if his own coach, who's in the minors with him, set him on the bench, then there has to be something there. that they're seeing, that they've seen hundreds of goalies. They know he has the potential, but there's something there that they see that tells them he's not ready.
Well, if he was ready, he'd be up here.
Exactly. So
of course.
This debate back and forth of, no, just put him up. Just put him up. It may benefit you in your opinion, but does it benefit Askarov in his maturity, in his progression, in his sport? Probably not. That's why Pekka says what he says. That's why Barry said what he said. That's why his own coach in the minors took him out of net, because he's not ready. Why can't we just be okay with he's not ready just yet? Not to say he won't be ready next year or the year before that. He's not ready yet. But we know who's ready. UC Saros. So let's just go with him. Let's sign him to another deal, and let's go, because he's the known commodity. I understand the unknown commodity has a big upside, but he hadn't showed it yet. So I'm not going to rush him.
If the question was, is he ready or not? That's an easy question, because I think every conversation that we have had and everything that we have heard is, if he had to get called up today, he is not ready. That's the easy question, but it's not that easy. I think the big discussion that we're having is the much larger discussion of him and Saros and what's the team's direction moving forward.
Right.
It really is. It really is.
If it was easy, then I don't think that we would be having as much discussion.
I think it's easy from this standpoint of, you know what he is now. So it's easy to make the move of, okay, UC is our
But the
goalie.
move's not for now.
I understand it's not for now.
9 years, essentially.
But you still have to, put in whether you believe he's the goalie or not. And I'm not talking about, the coaches or anything. Whether we believe he's the goalie or not. That's our belief. But their belief is, hey, if he is, we still got to have a contingency plan that if it takes him longer than what we expect, we got to have a guy in net that we can depend on, and UC is that guy.
Right.
So there's no reason to sort of move away from him so quickly.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
If he's not.
But you can still work the contract where it's not it doesn't hamper you the way everybody else is, the way people are trying to make it seem like they can't sign him, because if they sign him, they can't do anything else. That's not the case.
That's the nuance of the discussion. Again, that this is not hot take radio. This is a good balanced discussion where we try to get to all of the things. I hope that they can sign UC Saros to a next contract that isn't 8 years. Maybe they can get him to take 7. It is going to be a long-term contract.
Yeah.
And he's going to get paid because he's an elite goaltender. Somebody's going to pay him. I think the Predators are looking to do that. They're going to try to get it down to as affordable and as team-friendly as they possibly can. And I side with Derek on what I think can be done. I don't think that inhibits you from having the rest of the room on your salary cap to build a championship team. He's taking up less of a percentage of the salary cap going forward in that next contract than Pekka Rinne did for years. Now, does that mean it's a perfect plan and I wouldn't consider anything else? No. But the missing part of the argument of Askarov is, A, we're hoping he becomes a great player. He's not a can't miss. It's not a sure thing. I hope he gets there. I think he's going to be pretty good in time. But you got to tell me who the other goalie is. You can't just say, go get a goalie on the free agent market. And I won't be satisfied with that. And I don't think Barry Trotz would be. You got to tell me who we're talking about. Who are the targets? Who are the potential guys? And then let's weigh that. Let's also weigh, what am I getting back from Saros? Because there is an argument to be made. I'm not discounting that at all. But you've got big gaps and holes of unknown. I like D-Mase, and I think agree that I like the known quantity of Saros. And what I've tried to point out is he's a known quantity, and yes, you're going to be paying him more. And yes, maybe he will regress a little bit in the back ends of that contract, but it's not going to kill your whole salary cap. It's not like paying $20 million, because $8 million in 3 or 4 years from now is not going to seem like a whole lot. Like Shesterkin, Ottinger, Jeremy Swayman, who's having a huge playoff for the Bruins. There's going to be other goalies that get paid big time. Like when Pekka Rinne signed the $7 million deal, that was pretty big. But he got eventually passed up by Vasilevsky and Bobrovsky and guys like that who are still making $9, $10 million a year. And Saros isn't going to be that much.
Right.
Saros, to me, maximum is $8 million. That's about max.
my argument isn't just about the money. It's also about what you wouldn't be getting back in return in terms of potential prospects and draft picks that could develop into that number one elite forward that this team has been looking for. It's not just the money, because you're right. If you get rid of Saros, you're still going to have to pay another goaltender. And while you would be paying that goaltender less, let's say you pay that goaltender $3.5 million. That's $4 to $5 million that you're not paying every single year that you can contribute to another guy who is a goal scorer, but it's also what you would get in return. And that's not just for Saros. That if you decide to move on from Askarov, that's also picks and prospects that you can use to fill in and find some goal scorers. But there is one thing that I keep seeing, and can we, as a class, just please decide right here today, May 15th at 1:20 p.m., that we are done with bringing up? Please, please, stop texting in and saying, well, just sign Saros to a 4-year deal.
It's not that easy. That's not that
Unlikely.
easy.
That's brilliant.
Unlikely.
I would like that, yeah.
That's genius. Now, just 4 years, $9 million. 4 years, $9 million is $36 million. 8 years, $8 million is $64 million. You think he's going to do that? No way.
Unlikely. I'd love it if he did.
If he did,
I would do that.
I
right?
would do that in a heartbeat. I think that would be the best possible move, because then you get Saros, and still $9 million a year. That's not going to break the cap. You get Saros for 4 years, and ideally over the next 4 years, Askarov is going to be ready to take over that position. That's perfect. That's best of both worlds. That ain't going to happen.
I think he is. Elliott puts it in good terms, right? He did it with Forsberg when that whole ordeal was going on, right? And even before that, Elliott was coming on with this when they did the Yossi big deal, right? Mm-hmm. When you're at that age, high 20s, and you're getting close to that UFA status, you want to hit the home run. And the market that everybody gets, elite players almost always get the full 8 years. Now, goalie, maybe you could you get him to 7? I don't know. Henrik Lundqvist, I looked today, he was a little bit older than Saros. He was like 31, and they got him to take 7, and they had to buy out the last year because he just aged to the point where, and they had Shesterkin, and they had Georgiev, who are two pretty good prospects that were starting to eat into it, and they ate the last year. But they got 3 or 4 really good years for Lundqvist. And you know what they signed him for? $8.5 million per year, because he was the king.
Yeah. Right?
That was probably a little high. Can the Predators learn from that? Can Saros meet them a little bit in the middle? You hope, right? This is where as Barry Trotz said, it's going to be a process.
Years,
it's
right?
probably not going to be easy on July 1st to say, you know what? We talked it over. July 1st in the morning, took us about an hour. Boom, we got a deal. It's going to take some time to iron out all of these details, right? But like you said, D-Mase, hopefully there's a little bit of give and take. Yeah. Maybe one less year, maybe a little bit more money. Maybe the full 8 years, but maybe it's a little bit of a hometown discount. Your money goes further here. I'm sure that is going to be part of the talks.
But I don't know if the talks are
4 years
going to get him down to.
4 years.
I love Nashville so much. I only want to be here for 4 more years.
4 years, I don't think.
Give me 15.
Then he's shortchanging himself. He's earned something bigger than that because he's been an elite all-star goaltender.
This is fair to say, his last contract. His opportunity to cash in.
It wasn't Pekka's last contract,
but last
right?
big contract. I think is fair.
Last big swing. Big swing.
You'll pick up a 1 year, a 2 year deal here and there worth a couple of $1 million, but this is your opportunity to take care of your family for the rest of your life and for their lives.
Right. You earned that.
He earned that, and he's going to want to cash in on that. If he signs for 4.
Barry Trotz is even more of a wizard than I
know. Take a bow. And we've got some thoughts on this. So we'll get into that coming up next. Plus, I have a Predators thought, unrelated to the goalie position. Shocker. I do wonder, when Predators fans are watching this Edmonton-Vancouver series, through what lens are they looking at it? We'll get into that coming up next. We'll get into your thoughts as well. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase. We're brought to you by Zen Sports. Start earning cash rewards on your bets today. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and in Tennessee to bet.
Hey, this is Derek Mason, and you heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff at Cool Springs MD for some time now. I've shared how they help with imbalanced hormones and how they offer a comprehensive weight loss program that addresses the root cause of weight gain, people. But now I want to tell you about the new laser they offer. It's called the Empowered Laser. With this laser, Dr. Lodge and Cool Springs MD can help you turn back the clock and take control of your body. Learn about this amazing new laser and how it stimulates your Kegels in 20 minutes, ladies. The only laser indicated for mixed urinary stress incontinence. And hear about the Tone feature, a muscle stimulator that increases the muscle production and toning of your stomach, thighs, love handles, and more. People, Dr. Lodge and his team are ready to help you turn back the clock and take control of your body with the new Empowered Laser at Cool Springs MD. So visit their website to make an appointment. It's coolspringsmd.com today.
And Askarov needs all the reps, and Askarov needs all of it. Putting this Scarbini, Troy Gresnick in there doesn't do me anything. And again, for Willie and Chris and Alex Darty and Ian, I love you, but I guess you, for everybody to say, well, that's a hot take to say that the manager's job and the head coach's job of a minor league team is to develop the players for the major league. I'm like, am I the only person living on planet Earth?
Well, that's not the hot take. The hot take is that you would fire Carl Taylor for benching Askarov. That's
I wouldn't even think twice about it. Now, my gut is he talked to Barry Trotz before he did that. And then at that point, I'm disappointed in the decision by Barry Trotz.
Or at least Scott Nickel, the GM down there.
Well, and Scott, okay. So if he talked to Scott Nickel, you know who Scott Nickel's talking to before
they're all in cahoots.
Again, I mean, I think Barry Trotz knew this was coming. I don't think they did this without Barry Trotz's approval. But I disagree with it.
That was Jared on Stillman and Company yesterday.
Willie and Chris and Ian.
Everybody
said he wanted to be an Avenger.
Yeah, everybody come on, because that take right there didn't make too much of a sense.
You put Ian in that position.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I had to.
Ian came in yesterday. He said, "Don't loop me in with him."
Hey, well, he's a part of the circle open.
Ian came through. He's on. He wants to be an Avenger.
Exactly.
We're happy. We're happy
so
about
you can come
that.
in. So, but that if you say, and maybe when Jared said it and he sort of thought about it, well, I guess since Barry, if he did talk to Barry, I don't want to fire.
He
But
had to
then he
stop
doubled
himself.
down. He didn't stop himself. He didn't. He just said, "I still fire him." Like Jared, if he talk with Nichols and Nichols talk to Barry and everything is like, all right, why are you firing people because it was done?
That is an illogical, irrational argument.
That makes no sense. That's
Because-
like punishing your kid if they ask you to do something and you say yeah and they do it and then punishing them. That
Right.
makes no sense.
Well, I just put this reference to Caroline. Let's say the three of us, we just said, okay, here's a topic for the radio show tomorrow. It's controversial. It's not an easy decision, but it's controversial. We know there's going to be backlash, and it might have long-range consequences. Let's check with the boss. Let's go to Chase.
And we go over everything.
We go to Chase. This is what we want to talk about. Are you on board with this? It's topic X. Topic X is a controversial. There will be backlash. Is it okay if we do this? And Chase says, you know what? It's a tough call, but you guys are in charge of your own show. Go ahead. Talk about topic X. And then we go out the next day and we talk about topic X. And then Chase comes in and fires us. So Jared is saying, I think Carl Taylor might have talked to Scott Nickel and Barry Trotz about this decision. Oh, you think? Yeah. I would say he probably was aware that you were going to bench Askarov. And you know what? Somewhere in here he said, you know what, Carl? You're the coach of the Admirals. You're a good coach. If this is what you think your team needs, great. But Jared admits that and then still says he would turn around and fire him. He should fire him.
I wouldn't want to work
That
for
doesn't
him.
make any sense.
I wouldn't want to work for
okay,
him
but
with
He
him.
might be saying
yes.
if he didn't consult with Barry Trotz and he made that decision against Barry Trotz's best wishes, then I think that we have a different conversation. If Barry Trotz says, don't you dare do that, and he does it anyway, that's a different
That's
conversation.
not what he's arguing.
Yeah.
I know.
He just admitted that he thinks it probably went up the chain.
Yeah.
From Nickel
That's
to
when
Trotz.
that's when you stop and say, okay,
You
know
don't make
what?
a decision like that without going up the flagpole.
My take, it probably was a little bit too, out there, and I jumped the gun, possibly.
Yeah.
I'm going to
It's
take
okay
it back
to
because
admit that
I talked with the coach, I talked with Pekka, I heard what he, so I'm good.
But
Just
look,
leave it there.
I again, this is why I gave Jared 24 hours ago a chance for the take back of that. I'm not saying he needs to take back his strong opinion that Askarov should play every game. That's his opinion. I don't agree. I agree with I think it might be the best thing for Askarov to sit back and wait for the next opportunity. Maybe it'll motivate him. He's struggling. Don't throw him back in the fire when he's struggling. But we can have that debate. What's illogical is what he just threw out there. That doesn't make any sense. But everybody who loves Hot Take Radio, go ahead and listen to Jared. Don't listen to Chris Mason. Don't listen to the Avengers. Let's see what Pekka says at 3 o'clock. I want to hear that. And I very much commend Jared for getting a voice of reason, somebody who actually is in there and part of this process. Right? Let's hear what Pekka says, and let's form our opinion from there.
Now, if he did, in fact, Leroy Jenkins himself.
You were trying to explain who Leroy Jenkins is. I didn't get the
reference. I was
reference.
in the car yesterday, and I was at a red light. I was like sipping out of my water bottle. I heard that. I like spit out my water a little bit. So Leroy Jenkins, it's like a famous internet video from I think it's World of Warcraft, the game. And it's like a video of the game, and it's this huddle of all of these guys playing the game, and they're planning their attack. They're planning their invasion. Okay, we're going to be very strategic about this. We're going to talk about this. We're going to talk this through, make sure that everybody knows what we're doing on our attack. And then this guy comes through and goes, Leroy Jenkins, and just invades without consulting with anybody. So that's a Leroy Jenkins move.
Not
Of
consulting.
Everybody's making a plan, and then you just go ahead, Leroy Jenkins,
do whatever you
yourself.
want.
Leroy Jenkins.
So let me answer
Carl
Jared's
Jenkins.
question. Jared asked this question to Ian, who is now one of the Avengers. Good job, Ian.
Yes. Pick right.
Am I the only guy? It's Willie, Chris, Ian, you. Am I the only? Yes, you're the only guy who thinks that they should fire Carl Taylor. You're the only guy. You are. So congrats.
That is the spiciest.
And by the way,
portion
when
of
you were
that
over
take.
there talking to Pekka, did you float this out to some people and see what they thought of the idea of firing Carl Taylor?
We could perhaps find out at 3
Maybe
o'clock.
we'll ask Jared that.
Yeah.
I guess we might find out at 3 o'clock again.
Did he ask Pekka in the interview at 3 o'clock? I think they should fire Carl Taylor for not playing his card. What do you think?
What do you think?
What do you
Pekka
think
would have
Pekka would say? Do you think he would say, "Oh yeah, you're right. Great idea, Jared"?
Perhaps.
I mean, it's okay to say you it's okay to say you went a little bit overboard.
Yes.
I understand Jared does what he does. He's great at what he does. It's okay to have mentioned, you know what? I went a little overboard with that.
May have been a little.
That's why I gave him a chance for the take back.
But that was his
because I
genuine
love
feeling.
Jared.
That is his
He's a
genuine
good man.
belief.
He's a good host, but he's a little out of control when he gets to this point. And I'm the checks and balances. The Avengers are here to check him.
He said he's out of control. He's out of control.
At times
he's out of control. We just got to reel it back in. Just got to reel it back in.
There is a boundary. Here come the Avengers. The circle's forming, D-Mase.
We got to reel you back in, Stillman. We got to reel you back in. That's all.
Here comes the Falcon. Here comes Captain America.
I have a text to my personal text line.
Here's Renee.
Oh, I wonder who this could be.
Jared Stillman texted into my personal text line. Phone line driven by WillsCountyHonda.com.
Yes.
Mine is not, but ours are. No, I did not ask anyone there what they thought about Carl Taylor.
Well, you should have. That was a bold statement you made. You should have asked Pecorine, like, what do you think about Carl Thomas? You didn't have to ask him. And listen, I'm not in a position. Jared asked great questions on his own, but I mean, you threw it out there. You should just. Well, let's hope you did. Like, what do you think of Carl Thomas? Carl Taylor, not Carl Thomas. That's the singer. Carl Thomas is the singer. Carl Taylor. What do you think about him? That's what I mean. I hope. I'm sure Jared probably asked that. You would think. I don't know.
JD in Nashville texts in, says Jared's living in Willy's head rent free.
I did have the drip last night with Jared.
You had the drip.
How could he say that?
Well, sometimes you just gotta look at it like this, Willie. Like, listen, he's gonna have his take no matter what. You can't let it. You just gotta like it's Jared, man.
Most of the time, all right. I turned into the Hulk though. Another one of the Avengers.
Yeah, sometimes you have to turn into the Hulk.
Give me an answer. Yes or no? Yes or no?
Bruce Banner.
But no, I'm looking forward to hearing the interview with Pecorine later on today at 3:00 on Stillman show to see how he sort of massaged it with Pekka. Not to say he went easy on Pekka with the questions, but I'm saying how were the questions laid out and how Pekka answered them. So that's what I want to hear.
It's interesting perspective from Pekka, who has had hands-on experience with Askarov, and has not only had hands-on experience but has also been in that same position. I
do think it is, as we discussed yesterday in our nuanced discussion, when they put Askarov back in, it's a big decision.
Yes.
And not an easy decision. And game one is
I think he should play in this series, but where do you play? Yeah.
Absolutely has to play in this series.
At some point.
At some point.
When is the opening? Mm-hmm. And the question is, if Grosnick just plays great, that makes the decision tough. If he goes out and stinks it up in the first period, and you're like, okay, Yarrow, Askey, you're in, period 2. That could make it easy for you.
Uh-huh.
The tough part would be if they continue along the same line, Grosnick plays well and they win, that's tough.
I'm guessing that Yarrow and Askey are both of his nicknames.
Yeah.
Hockey nicknames are tough to keep up with, man. Like, they'll choose the teeniest, tiniest part of a 14-letter long last name, and I'm like, who the heck is longer? Right. Who is that?
Or what if you have two Macs? You have Michael McCarron, Ryan McDonough. Now
Big
you got
Mac,
two Macs.
Mac.
You got it right.
Big Mac, Little Mac.
Right.
I'm
Big
surprised.
Sexy
or McDouble.
Duns.
There you
That's
go.
what they call it. They call him Dunsey.
Oh,
Ryan McDonough and Big Sexy. That way you avoid like Big Mac.
Okay.
But Cole Smith is still Smitty. There's
That
a
makes
million.
sense.
There's a million Smiths.
That makes sense.
But every Smith is Smitty.
Like, oh, Donner. Who the hell is Donner? Oh, it's Ryan McDonough.
Dunsey.
The long last name. Like, my goodness. Tough to keep up with.
I thought you were talking about a reindeer for a second. I don't know.
Couple of Blitzens out there. You never know. I do want to touch on this, though. I was watching Edmonton and Vancouver last night, and I wondered, through what perspective are Predators fans looking at this? Because I hear this all the time, like in college football or in the NFL of, I hear it from LSU fans all the time. Well, yeah, we got beat by Alabama, but Alabama's probably going to win the national championship, so it's okay that we can justify losing to the national champion. I see that logic, but I also see the logic of what that team does has nothing to do with your team. So I do wonder, are Predators fans looking at this like, well, Vancouver's been playing really, I know they lost last night, but played really well against Edmonton. For the most part, have done a really good job of limiting what Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid have done. If Vancouver goes on to win this series, now tied at 2-2, will Predators fans feel more validated in losing that series because Vancouver beat the big bad Edmonton Oilers? I'll share my opinion on that, and that is Vancouver beating Edmonton has nothing to do with you blowing your lead in Game 4. That, Vancouver beating Edmonton has nothing to do with you going 0 for 5 on the power play in Game 3 and Vancouver going 2 for 3 on their power play and that being the difference. That there were several opportunities that the Predators had to win that series that they lost. I can understand that sentiment a little bit more when you just got outclassed by a team that's better than you. Like when you just got Colorado Avalanched in 2022. It's like, okay, that team's just better than you. Touche, hats off to you. You're the better team. I understand it more in that perspective. I don't necessarily feel that way with this playoff series and with that team in the Vancouver Canucks.
Edmonton, would we say that Edmonton, I mean, if you look at the betting odds, is a Stanley Cup contender?
Yes.
Has been for the last couple of years.
Yes.
Edmonton blew a 4-1 lead to Vancouver. Vancouver was down 2-0 last night with 4 minutes to go, came back and tied it, and then gave up another goal. So the Magic, maybe they turned into a pumpkin right after that. But they were making another comeback. So they've been doing this to Edmonton just the way they did to the Predators. I think so all of what you said is true, but I think I would look at it as if Edmonton is a contender, which they are, but they have flaws, right, in goal, and they got a great performance last night in Game 4 from a journeyman number 3 goalie who's 32 years old, but he got the job done for him. He deserves all the credit. Shelov's almost got them to the finish line, at least to overtime last night, and then he maybe showed a little crack in the armor on the last goal. I would ask myself, let's look at Vancouver, dead even series against a Stanley Cup contender. Nashville played them, dead even series, could have gone either way. How close am I to being a contender? I think it's pretty fair to say they're not there. But I think it's a gauge if you believe Edmonton is a contender and Vancouver's right there with Edmonton. Vancouver's a heck of a team. They are doing
it's
extremely
a measuring stick,
well.
I think, is fair. But to say, well, it's fine that we lost to this team because this team is playing really well against Edmonton.
I didn't say it was fine.
No,
The question is, how close are you to being a legit contender?
Measuring stick, I think, is fair. I'm just saying maybe if some Predators fans are feeling like that. I'm not saying that you said that. If some Predators fans are saying, well, hey, they're tied with Edmonton. They played really well against Edmonton. So, I can sleep a little bit easier at the end of the day. Measuring stick, I think, is the fair evaluation of this is how you measured up against this team, and this is how this team continues to perform.
Well, if you're going to base it upon that, base it on that, to me, there's going to be some flaw in there.
Of course. The transitive property of equality is not applicable.
Yeah, I look at it from this standpoint. Listen, we lost. Meaning, if I'm on the team, we lost. That's all I really care about. We lost. We were not good enough. I'm not going to even say we were not good enough. We didn't take advantage of the opportunities that we had as a team. That's the disappointing part about it. If they go on to beat Edmonton and go on to the Stanley Cup, it doesn't make me feel any better if they then make it to the Stanley Cup. Actually, it's going to make me feel worse because if you look at that series, that's the series we should have won. Yeah. So I'm going to feel worse. I'm not going to feel better. I'm going to feel worse because we had an opportunity. If I'm on that team, we had an opportunity to win that series, and we didn't. We didn't take advantage of them having to use 3 goalies. We didn't take advantage of us being on a power play that many times in the game and then coming up with nothing. We didn't take advantage of the opportunities that we had as a ball club to win a series against a very good team. I'm then not looking at it as if they go on to the Stanley Cup. Oh, well, at least we lost to the Stanley Cup. No, we had a chance to beat them.
I do think for the whole thing of they couldn't score against Vancouver, right? That was a big thing. Oh, if you could have just scored a few more goals, right? Because they only scored 12 goals in the 6 games. It's a fair thing to throw out there. The goals in the series were 13-12.
We're producing offense at the level you were in the regular season.
Right. But I would also look at the playoffs. I'm trying to get a fair gauge fair evaluation of my team, right, if I'm Barry Trotz. I do think it's relevant to sit there and say, let's look across the league. Who is outgunning their opponent? There's a lot of 2-1 games. Vancouver is holding the most explosive team. Colorado maybe a close second, right? There's the absolute explosiveness, waves of offense. That's the Oilers. And Vancouver is doing a great job of bottling them up to a degree. And the Oilers have way more goal scoring. They've got the 2 best guys. Now, their problem is depth, right? If it's not McDavid and Draisaitl, the problem with the Oilers is the rest of their roster isn't getting anything done. But I would look at it and say, okay, why couldn't we score? Well, I wish we'd had some better goal scorers, yes, but I also have to look at Vancouver's defense and say that's a pretty special defensive core. They are defending pretty well against the Oilers with their number 3 goalie in there.
Yes.
That says something about why you couldn't score. It has something to do with it.
It provides nuance. And also, I think another important thing to point out is, as I said, the transitive property of equality does not apply in sports. Just because you beat this team and that team beat that team doesn't mean that you're going to beat that team as well. Another thing that doesn't apply is always carry over into the next year of we were so close this year, and then next year we'll get even further if we're able to, fix a couple of things here and there. The things that went right doesn't always mean that things are going to go right the next season.
100%.
And to be fair, too, the things that went wrong doesn't necessarily mean that those things are going to go wrong either. I always go back to what Dan Campbell said at the end of the NFC Championship game. He said, look, there's no promise we get back here next year. No, I don't feel good about where we're going to go next year because I don't know what my team's going to look like next year. Every year is completely different. An important thing to keep in mind as well. We've got some phones on this, so let's wrap up the show with your phones coming up next. Caroline, Willy, D-Mase. Nashville's best deal of the week is Bavarian Beer House. Conveniently located at Opry Mills Mall. Enjoy beer, food, music, and fun at Nashville's only authentic German beer hall where it's Oktoberfest every day. Head to theGameNashville.com/deals right now to get a $50 gift card for only $25 to Bavarian Beer House while supplies last.